so unhealthy, man. you doing?
Well,
Hey guys, it's your boy.
Hey.
It's your boys. It's your boys.
Hello.
So, as many of you know, I never start shows well, and it's kind of a signature. So I always like to, I can't hear you when you're talking in the background before I switch scenes, and I could change that, but I don't want to. It's just because one day I'm gonna transition scenes at the most opportune time ever, in the middle of some screaming fight I have no context for, and it's gonna be just a work of glorious streamer art. So anyways, welcome to SEAL Team 7. How's everybody doing today?
Incredible.
Are you guys doing good? Do we do a sound check for the audience? How are you guys doing? Can you hear everybody?
Yo.
Yeah, what's happening?
Can't hear Phil. Oh
Philip's
no.
quiet. Impossible. That's a rare thing. No Philip, they're saying.
Okay, I will turn Philip up.
Okay. Thank you. That's a rarity. Philip is quiet.
You were sounding good on this end.
All right, quiet
Yeah.
Phil.
The strong silent type over there.
They still say quiet.
They're still saying you're kind of quiet. But speak to us more so that we know.
Should I raise something on my? Is it only on your end? Because I think we can hear each other fine on this side.
I cranked you up to 11, but
Okay.
yeah. I've got an idea. I'm going to just turn everything up, and then I'm going to turn Ray a little down. So,
Okay.
All right, let's give that a shot. How's that?
How we doing? Test. Can you hear me? Should I yell more into it?
Can you just
I guess
scream?
that sound okay.
Yeah, you sound great.
How we doing? What's the deal? Can you hear me?
That's great. Okay. And well, he is a monk. That's a good point, Venetia Silver.
Awesome. They say perfect. Okay.
So
Very good. I'll talk loudly.
We literally have a class with us today. We have a monk class with us today.
That's right. That's right. So
Yes.
this is SEAL Team 7. This is going to be one of 3 shows in a very short period of time. We just had our first post intermission emission transmission with Blitz, your boy, Sleep Easy, and Meat Juice Gallagher, and together we all broke this thing down, and by the end of it we had more questions than answers, and it was a great stream. So now we've got this one. I've got 2 esteemed guests. Sleep Easy would be here, but he's got stuff he's working on. He's under strict orders to be working on said things. I have a little peek at the veil, behind the veil of what he's working on, and I can just tell you that I opted for him to be working on that instead of being here. That's how excited I am for what he is working on. So you all should be excited too. And that should be out soon. Oh, thank you for the follow.
All right.
Resofocals. And
Welcome.
I hope that's how you say that. If not, I apologize. So today we've got 2 big time guests. I'm really excited. I've had them both on the show before, and I will give them both a chance to introduce themselves. Today we're going to be talking about Intermission. Intermission, which is the Yuffie DLC for Final Fantasy VII, that came alongside Intergrade, the PS5 exclusive edition upgrade for Final Fantasy VII Remake. And in addition to it being about as beefy as you can get for a DLC in just terms of raw content, it also had quite the ending. So this is, and we're going to be talking about that. So this is going to be incredibly spoiler filled. In case you haven't noticed, the background is spoiler filled. This is going to be like spoilery spoil. And we're going to talk about that. So if you're not into that right now, you need some time, turn around. Go play Intermission. Go get your emission. Put on the remix to Ignition. And then when it's the freaking weekend, you can have you some fun. Okay. So it is my great honor to introduce Phillip Hartshorn. Let's start with him. Why don't you tell us who you are, what you do, what your level is, and how many ways you've thought of to kill me.
Hey guys, my name is Phillip Hartshorn. I am a filmmaker who grew up playing Final Fantasy and inspired me to get into filmmaking with its amazing storytelling back in the FF7 days, FF8 days. And it's super cool to come full circle and now be able to talk about it with the community. And you may have seen me on my main YouTube channel, besides my gaming one, where I've got into many misadventures, such as living as a warrior monk at the Shaolin Temple in China, and getting beat up by monks, which you can see aplenty on that very channel. if you're a hater, please, you'll love this video. And as far as ways to kill you, I would say the one is probably strapping you to a seat and making you watch like Sleep Easy's theory videos till your head explodes from like the epicness of them. But yes, that's my main way I would say I would do it.
Okay. That was very flattering. I like that. You do, by the way, have incredible content, and in the VOD we'll post links, but if you have time to look him up on another browser, guys, he's an incredible martial artist and an incredible filmmaker, and he's got, I think, some of the best takes. I said it the first time I had him on that he had some of the first takes that I really like aggressively resonated with as somebody that really enjoyed the remake. Now I've had a lot of people on, including people that didn't enjoy the remake, and their opinions are equally valid, so I'm not saying that, but I do remember feeling like this extreme vindication when I heard somebody kind of saying the stuff that you were saying, and so it was really fun to watch those right off the bat. And
thank you so much. And
so those were great. And I also had the great privilege of hanging out with you on stream yesterday and watching you fight Vice the Immaculate for 4 hours. And that was
putting it generously. It was more like a murder. He was destroying me for a long time, over and over again.
there were cheeks that were getting clapped, but it happens to the best of us, man. It was really that's a challenging fight, and I'm here for it. So that was a ton of fun. Next I have speaking of legends, Ray Kaufman. Why don't you tell us who you are, what you do, and I'll show pictures of your books while you do so.
Well, I am Ray Kaufman. I've been on here before. We had a great time. So he messaged me, Clark messaged me, asked to do it again. I was like, absolutely. You let me know when. I write novels. I draw comic books. I'm a storyteller, basically. I'm working on some animated projects right now, but more than anything, I'm just a storyteller. And that's kind of what I do on YouTube is like I take my storyteller brain and I use kind of what the game of Final Fantasy VII Remake presents, and I kind of look at it from like a storyteller's perspective and kind of say, okay, where are they going with this? Where are they going with that? So, and I'm just a big fan of the gaming industry. I'm a big fan of JRPGs, and that's just what I love. I cover that on YouTube. I do the storyteller thing, and here I am hanging out with boys tonight. Gonna have a good time. Gonna have some juicy conversation tonight, I think.
That's right. And I became aware of Ray really early on too, because after the whole excitement of the game faded and there was just like the reactions of like, well, am I allowed to like this or not? And then once I was given permission to like it by the community, I started looking at like, well, what's happening in Remake? And so I found Sleep Easy. I found you, and you have some really fresh, on the fly, wild takes, and I love it. Like when you were on, Sleep Easy was on, and you guys swirled around in this vortex of like way in the future ideas that was really engaging to watch, and it's really just, it's kind of what the draw of Remake is for a lot of people. Is it's like they've made a real clear choice to go in some direction, but it is unclear what that direction is, and you're one of those voices that's extremely excited about the possibilities. And as a storyteller, you start to tell stories on stream about ways things can go, and it's very watchable. Also, just watching you stream in general is incredibly fun. I still to this day, I will rewatch your reaction to there's a creepy baby in a very popular game that is out right now, and watching Ray's reaction to that level. Thank you, YOLO Alchemist. Appreciate the sub. Yo, what's up? And I will rewatch that to like turn my frown upside down, because you're just an intensely watchable guy. And then also like I've just like that got me into like watching you, figuring out what you do, kind of getting to know you, and like you have so many incredible talents. You're just like this great artist. You have this great creative ability, and it's really fun to be involved in your creativity. So it's been a joy to get to know you. So I'm really honored to have you here. So,
well, thank you.
Yeah, oh, you bet, man. Anytime, you're welcome here. So we'll start with just thoughts, okay? Thought not on the we'll save the ending till the juicy end of this. And Night Sky Prince, yo, I'm glad to have you in here, my friend.
That guy.
Yes. Night Sky Prince, we've been chatting a lot about Final Fantasy Origin and how wrong we both were about it.
Chaos.
It's gonna be awesome. Chaos.
Kill chaos.
Kill chaos. Chaos.
We all got that out now.
Me and the boys going to kill chaos.
So, let's just get your let's get your initial impressions of Intermission as a game, like without getting to the ending and all that means. What do you guys think? We'll start with Ray Ray.
I thought it was a really well fleshed out kind of narrative, because it was this whole sandbox they could play with, because there's no clear definition of what Yuffie was doing before you meet her. Why was she there? Why was she not around Wu Tai? So they kind of tied it up in a way that makes sense from a narrative standpoint. And also it makes sense in this new deviation they're taking, because Wu Tai in the game, in Remake, is different than the Wu Tai we know from OG Final Fantasy VII. It's not a tourist trap anymore. So, like, she's part of this new regime, this new government or whatever. And you find out stuff about Godo.
Yeah.
They keep teasing the name.
Yeah.
You find out stuff about Godo, and you're like, oh, that's interesting too. So the lore that was available for you to pick out if you knew what you were listening for in Intermission was dope.
Yes.
Like, I was like blown away by how much just in the throwaway dialogue they gave you. You know what I mean? I was like, oh, my brain was picking stuff out, as I'm sure Sleep Easy and you guys were too.
Oh, yeah.
But I thought the handling was great. The synergy system was friggin' amazing.
Uh-huh.
I was playing it, and I'm replaying it, and I'm having so much fun playing through it again, like understanding how to properly play it now, as opposed to just like staying in synergy mode and just doing this attack the whole time.
Right.
Like knowing how to properly play it now is a lot of fun. And the way they integrated, no pun intended, pun completely intended actually. The way they integrated the stories and the concepts from Dirge of Cerberus into the story. Because what I've said before, I've said so many times, and I think I've said it to you too, Baby Seal, is if you look at the compilation, you have to look at it from a standpoint as a storyteller, say, we have these excellent concepts. These concepts are like an 8 out of 10. But some of the execution is about a 4 out of 10. Some of the execution was sloppy in the compilation, but the concepts were excellent. Some people they put those together and say it's all bad. No, no, no. All the concepts are great.
Totally.
And what they did with Intermission is what I thought they were going to do with Remake, which seems like what they're doing. They're taking these concepts that weren't necessarily executed the way they want to, and they're weaving them back in, and they're going to properly execute them this time. And I think that's just beautiful, you know.
100%.
The stuff with Vice and Nero, just a short little bit you got with Vice, and then Nero. What I thought of it, and this I'll stop at this because I ramble. So what I kind of thought of that part, you know how all great fairy tales and folklore have the part where the kids wander into the woods and they know they're not supposed to. That's what Deep Ground reminded me of. You're on this fairy tale journey, everything, and they wandered into the woods. What happens when you go into the woods in any fairy tale? Dark, horrible shit happens.
Yeah.
And that's what they did. They wandered into the woods. And Yuffie got away, Gretel got away, but Hansel didn't. You know what I mean? So I thought that was brilliantly executed. So I just thought Intermission as a whole was just a real love letter to the fans, a nice tie over, and Square Enix showing us that, hey, we're going to do this thing right. So that's how I think it.
Right on. What about you, Phil?
I agree with everything you just said, man. It's just so well done, and in a way that, you know, Remake Part 1's incredible. It's so enjoyable. It flows so smoothly. And then, but to see such an improvement in, you know, just in Intermission itself is mind blowing. Even to stuff that I wasn't even expecting, like level design, pacing, the execution of like just the gameplay elements. It was so smooth and so fun. There's no more kind of like janky movement in between stuff. She's so quick. She jumps. She runs across stuff. It's just clean. It's smooth. There's a flow to everything, and I love that. And that's her character, you know. But beyond that, I think as far as the storytelling, the narrative goes, I think it's a really moving sort of like coming of age for Yuffie, which is so cool because Yuffie, I always describe her as like a non-character, you know, in the original. She's not even anything. She's just there for one side quest, doesn't speak unless spoken to. And for me, it's so cool that they not only made her into like a human in this that, you know, we can understand, who's not kind of like a caricature. But beyond that, they gave her this coming of age story, and they built her up and elevated her even in Intermission. And for me, it's kind of this coming of age thing with she's acting like a child. Like everything that she's that is ingrained in her is childlike. Where she's literally singing children's songs, you know, in the beginning of this, like the Happy Turtle, and they're singing children's songs, having a good time. Everything is about her. Again, a very childish mindset, you know. She doesn't want help. She doesn't want companions. If she has them, she's kind of making fun of them, poking fun and everything. Again, another childlike thing. Her father is, you know, a prisoner of war now, which is an incredible twist on the original. And she, again, very childish mindset. She can't even imagine seeing his perspective, how he tried to save their country. It's just, I don't care about him. You know, refusing to see any other perspective but her own. More childish mindsets. She doesn't want a team. She wants to work alone. Again, even like the editing and everything is almost very childlike. It's very fast paced. It's zany. It's all over the place from a filmmaking standpoint. It's very exciting. It's very busy. And then by the end, we have this, after these horrible things happen to her, much like you said, this kind of Hansel and Gretel, you know, falling into the woods, and then she goes through a tragedy. She realizes, number one, she can't do it alone. Number two, like, this is not some fairy tale. You know, she's not a kid anymore. And she's kind of, what does she say? I need a team. She's thinking about getting people to join her, and she's no longer a child. You know, she can see from a different perspective now. She's not so selfish. And I guess what impressed me about it was they did all of this in the space of a short DLC, you know, and so quickly. Another standout was Sonon, who's in it much less than Yuffie. You know, he comes in later in chapter 1. Is the thing with the Chow Bean during his death scene. I can't believe, and the whole time I was like, what are they doing with this bean thing? Like, what are they building towards? And then sure enough, this meaningful death scene, you know, where he bites it, and it's kind of the identity of a ninja, of a shinobi, to be able to bite this with a show of your might and strength, and then you can't do it, and it's like, oh, it's time for him to go, man. He's no longer a ninja, and they did that so quick in the space of just a couple little funny gags with people not biting it, and then all of a sudden it hits you, and it's so sad. And I was so impressed. Understated, by the way. We mentioned execution, right, for Dirge of Cerberus and stuff. Not some big anime soliloquy when he dies, right? He just says kind of like, damn, Melfi, and then he goes. There's no vaunted speeches or anything. Very subtle, very well done. So I can't say enough about it. Fantastic. You said it too, Baby Seal. Juicy DLC. Like the length alone was incredible. The story's great. 10 out of 10 for me. The ending too. I mean, one more thing. The fact that we got a probably $100K budget short film from the 5-second walk to Calm from the original game, where you just go on the world map. We commissioned the film studio Visual Works to give us like a short film of like, what? They are so good to us. Like, we don't deserve this shit. We don't deserve it. They're way too good to us, So I was just saying, like
the fact that Chocobo Bill takes the right and goes to where the Chocobo farm should be, it just, the attention was so good.
We don't deserve it. They're too good to us.
And again, I mean, there are details that I really don't think anybody's caught yet that Sleep Easy has caught and is coming out, and I could not be more excited about that. My takeaway was that it was incredible. Obviously, it was both sort of addressed concerns about the future of the series from a mechanical standpoint. Not just things like hardware issues with rendering, the game and rendering textures and loadouts, and the base game remake with the PS5 update and Intergrade it is a markedly better experience, and there's even more lore details in there too, and some vague differences that are worth going over eventually too. And so there's that, but it's also that it addressed some things that I was worried about in the series. It addressed how far are they going to push this in terms of maturity. So like this story both showed this childhood side and portrayed innocence and growing up, but it also really it did not teeter away from the horror element of Nero. Like I do know that one of the things that I liked the Genova scene in Remake, but there's no way I could feel like I wasn't robbed a little of that horror experience that you have with Genova in the OG. And this made me feel like, well, okay, I raise you waking up to some corpses, to a psychopathic puppeteer that will use your best friend's corpse as a weird plaything for all eternity. Like it really amped up the level. Like when it was like seven strikes to kill Sonon, and it was a very brutal thing. But it wasn't only that, it was like they did not cut corners with him, like grabbing him by the face to bring him into his dark dimension. And that not only like addressed my concerns about, well, are they going to be able to tell this dramatic story? It also like alleviated my concerns about these Dirge of Cerberus characters that were conceptually maybe fine, but executed so terribly that I had no interest in seeing them. Nero was awesome. Like I now stand Nero so hard. Like Nero was so good. Like the whole experience of fighting him, the Nero battle theme was just, it was like this visceral, creepy, emotional experience.
Crazed,
yeah.
And I think I said this to you yesterday on the stream. Like what, like guys, they took, like it's one thing to take Yuffie, Barrett, Tifa, and like elevate them to like amazing characters, but Nero and Vice, like the most, what's the word? Kind of like overplayed, again, like cool characters, but just like delivered in a very over the top package, we'll say. Right?
Yeah, Kojima-esque package. Yeah,
very Kojima-esque, like very, very over the top, very fun, very playful. I don't think they're trying to be overly serious.
Yeah.
No, not bad. It's just the style they chose. But to make them like in the 20-second scene when you first see Deep Ground,
yeah,
almost nothing is said. And you're just like, ooh, oh, what is this? This is like good, man. It's just like dark underbelly. And I was saying to Baby Seal yesterday, like for new players, you got to look at it from their perspective. They see that, and with so few words, they've established, oh, there's more than just Hojo playing around with a couple experiments. Like there's a whole underbelly, dark underbelly of Shinra that we don't even know about, and you don't need to say anything.
yeah.
Notice when she said, "Why are you killing your friends?" He didn't go into a 5-minute Deep Ground is an underground Shinra research. He didn't do it. He just said, "You idiot, I'm going to kill you." You don't need to hear it. You saw that, and it's just so powerful. He's terrifying. The music, everything. Like I have full faith for whatever other suspense chapters we have in the future.
Writing was definitely great in that scene because, like, before, if you play as, I'm a Square Enix fan, but there have been games where you introduce a scene like that, and then there's just this exposition.
Yes.
Uh-oh.
Breaking up a bit.
Breaking up a little bit, Ray Ray.
Can you hear me now?
I sure can.
Yes.
Killing it.
But they wrote it in a way that even if you didn't know who it was, you knew they were bad news, and that's all you needed to know.
Yeah.
They wrote it. It was Kojima-esque. I said in one of my videos, I was like, he's got this Hannibal Lecter drip. You know what I mean? And they weren't playing around with it. They didn't let off of it and just say, hey, aesthetically this guy's terrifying or whatever. They pushed it to 11. They put the pedal to the metal, and they went all in on him. And even in Dirge of Cerberus, when you fight him for the last time, he's got that spider-esque kind of form with his wings and everything, And when he pulled those people up out of the darkness, this Nero is different than Nero in Dirge of Cerberus. This is a younger Nero, a younger, more immature Nero. He's not just answering to Vice. He's basically just playing around with no responsibilities right now. Vice is the one who reels him in.
Mm-hmm.
But right now, Vice is like, do your thing, do whatever you want. And now we're seeing full on how crazy Nero can be without any restraints. No gutter bumpers to throw gutter balls. He's totally off the rails. Yeah. And I love that they let him just be horrifying. The music nailed it for me. Like in the boss battle, every boss battle has a different movement to the music, right? There's different movements. Each movement was like almost like a piano concerto, and it was so different than any other boss fight in the games. The music and the tone and the atmosphere really put you in a mind space where you're like, I got to get out of here.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna I have to get out of here. And they did that artistically in a way because it was such a juxtaposition. Visually, yes. Control-wise, yes, you're playing the same game. But atmospherically, this is something you have no experience with, and I got to get out of here. And that's how the fight ended. We got to get out of here. You know what I mean? So they take you through that journey. I thought that was brilliantly done.
Yeah, and like it's cool because even during the Scarlet fight, it's still like cool, fun. Like, yeah, okay, cool. Like, yeah, it's a Gundam, but we can just beat it up with our hands. Great. But then you get to him, like you're not really worried, and then you get to him, and all of a sudden it's like, I'm uncomfortable. What is uncomfortable. This? Yeah, I don't want to be here. And like the music, like you said, it's like it's not cool. It's like another cool bop for a boss fight. It's like I'm scared. I don't feel good, and like he doesn't feel good, and he's not enjoying himself, and he's like it hurts so much. It's like it's really great. It's really this mood of like
it's like you go from your favorite aisle of Toys R Us into the abandoned house at the dark end of the street that nobody wants to be in.
Yeah. And just the execute, like it's just so well done, and like the visuals are dark and obscured, and like all these particles and darkness and stuff. And yeah, you go from like I like beating people up, and then like you said, I must escape. This is great. It's a hopeless fight.
And did you all notice too, like his darkness looked a whole lot like Genova's blood?
It looked. It was.
It's almost the exact same thing.
Mm-hmm.
It was the exact same thing. Like they use the same textures, they use the same assets, everything, and so
stuff coming off of it and the glare, it looked a little bit better because I remember it in 30 FPS.
Right.
Now I
Yeah.
was watching 60, so it looked different in that respect, but artistically, it was the same design. And I also love how Scarlet, she talked a lot different to Nero than she did everybody else.
Yes.
Did you notice that?
Yes.
She was like, she was very reverent with him. She was very regal with him. She was like, okay, I'm not
there's
going to be
no
a snotty bitch to you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wrap this up. I'll be in the office.
Yeah.
But I love that too because you could tell Scarlett puts on a lot of like airs and arrogance and stuff. You see her alone, there's no show to put on. There's no like meeting with the president and stuff. Like her competition, her corporate competition. There's no Yuffie to like kind of be racist to and stuff. And she's just like, I want them to suffer. Like she sounds totally different, and you can tell she's upset. You can tell she's actually upset, and that was interesting because it's kind of like we said. If you think about Dirge Cerberus being actually canon, like if it's gonna be there, Deep Ground exists at this point, right? They're not sealed in from Meteor coming down, right? Like in Dirge, like after Meteor falls. So it would make perfect sense that like if Scarlet was in really bad trouble, she would call in like the most disgusting freaks they've got, like the most experimental soldiers. And the fact that we see that now makes it all cohesive, just like that. This little kind of choice they made. If Deep Ground comes in later or whatever they do, it's like, oh yeah, like for a new player, makes perfect sense. It's all cohesive. So I love it.
Yeah.
They exist, so use them. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Great. The other thing that I think stood out for me and for a lot of people was combat. And what that means for the future. I mean, it's a big deal. Like, Yuffie's combat Yuffie's combat, and I said this last night on your stream actually, is what Yuffie's combat felt like to me is if they had the remake people oversee Final Fantasy 15's combat, because the throw retrieve mechanic works a lot like Warp Strike, but good. Like I don't know. It's like what I wish that whole game felt like. And the other thing that I think it establishes is the ability to make aerial combat work in a system that doesn't have a jump button. And because for reasons that maybe just are personal to me, I don't want a jump button in Final Fantasy 7. But there's a problem. It's hard to have good aerial combat without the ability to jump. Well, say no more. We've got you. Like the way the way they had that trace was so good, so well. The lock system worked so good. It was so intuitive. You felt great on your own. And then when you switch into hard mode and the difficulty spike changes, and then you realize that that Sonon and synergy and all that stuff is incredibly important to making the game work. And then things like synergized limit breaks, and your brain just breaks apart. Like, I cannot wait for the inevitable combination of all these different characters, to have their weird little limit breaks, and then it broke open the skies.
Just thinking about the possibilities, right? Because I talked about this last time I was on the show.
Yeah.
What I want is like this, and we saw it in the calm travel sequence, like this feeling of actually traveling together. Like, and actually, we've never seen that in the original. It's just like cutscenes, they talk. We've never seen them camp together. We've never seen stuff like that. So picture this: they could do something where it's like camp scenes. We're hanging out. You get to walk around camp. Picture 15, but expanded. You get to walk around camp and like talk to Tifa, talk to Aerith, talk to Barrett, and maybe like as you develop your relationship with them in this like sort of mini game or something, maybe conversation mini game or something, you get deeper connections that lead to a synergy limit break or something. There could be more limit breaks, like endless possibilities for this, and to tie it all together with the gameplay, the story, the narrative, all optional, all extra content. Like, it's just, I really encourage you guys. Obviously, PS5s are not aplenty right now. I mean, I had to run over Palmer with a Shinra truck to get mine. Like, you got to play this, because watching it and stuff, you can't feel how much better this game is. And this is not part 2. This is just, I mean, literally, it's called Intergrade, right? The in between evolution.
Yeah.
So I really recommend, even if it takes a year, get your hands on this. Check it out.
Absolutely.
The combat was just so tight. Like when I first picked it up to play it, even on normal mode, I had to readjust because I was used to the aerial combat not working as well and the
Yeah.
lock not being as tight. I had to take a second and be like, whoa, 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 this is already
Good.
completely different.
Yeah.
You're talking to a guy. I went through the game 4 times.
Oh wow.
The original 7 remake,
Yeah.
just to get stuff. So I had to reteach my brain. I was like, whoa, this works how it's supposed to now.
Yeah.
It was so nice. And the combat made me just dream of what we could get, because I feel like Sonnen is going to be, Sid's going to be like a reskinned Sonnen in kind of a way,
Sure.
as
Yeah.
far as how he operates and works. But I was just like, I was drooling at the thought of how Vincent Valentine's going to work. And I was just like, sky's the limit. I mean, he could be the best of every character.
Yep.
He could be one of those characters that's just so super broken, but super fun. And the combat in the game in Intermission, you all might agree with me on this. You were talking about 15. I got really, you get to a point where you're spamming Warp Strike, in 15, and it didn't feel great. Felt like I could spam their attacks all day, and it would just keep being fun in Intermission.
The
And I kind
choreography.
of did. Like I
Very well
spammed like Art of War, synergized Art of War over and over, and it never stopped being fun.
Exactly. I think a lot of that is just great animations, great choreography. Like it's just so polished. Again, just for a DLC, like part 2. And I want you guys to think too, like, that still is a PS4 game, just kind of like fancied up a little bit, still using all the assets from the PS4. Like part 2 is gonna look insane. It's gonna be using Unreal 5. It's gonna be bonkers, man. So just wait. I don't think anybody's thinking big enough. Not even me. It's gonna blow us away, man.
Yeah, not even you. And you guys are probably, apex big thinkers when I think of like people that have got just like very like level 11 type stuff going on. You guys are definitely up there. So Ray, have you had a chance to fight Vice yet?
No, not yet. It's on my list of things to do. Like, I want to save him for last because that's the thing I'm really looking forward to. Now, I did tell some people in my Discord that it'd be a while before I could fight him and try to beat him. So one of my mods, he was like, "Hey, I can share with you how that fight ends if you want." And I was like, "Go ahead and lay it on me." So I know how the fight ends. I know the big Easter egg at the end of that fight. So if that's what you're getting at.
I mean, kind of, but
the fight,
the fight itself, yeah.
I've seen people do the fight, and I love the fact that they made him incredibly hard to defeat.
Yes.
Because he's supposed to just be like on the level of Genesis, one rung below Sephiroth.
Yeah.
So he should be a complete and total badass and unbeatable.
Yeah,
he
totally.
I mean, it totally makes sense. And I love the fact that, he's Emperor Vice the Immaculate. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He's got that name for a reason among all these like X-Men that Shinra has in the basement. He's like their emperor. There's a reason he's like Apocalypse or Magneto. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I love the fact he's got his legs crossed and he's hooked to these machines. He's like, yeah, they want to replicate me.
He's
man. Yeah.
That's great.
And then Nero, as powerful as Nero is, he's just like, oh brother, they have no idea what, he has this like savior love for like this Jesus Christ apostle kind of love for Vice, as powerful as he is. So I love what they did with Vice. I love they treat him with such regality, and I think it fits perfectly. But no, I have not had a chance to fight him yet.
Well, yeah, and I mean that's the deal for me is I wanted a super boss, and they didn't shy away from it at all. And in terms of lore too, like the fight was just kind of it was the best way, I think. Like it shows me how sensitive they are, how self-aware they are with their compilation material, because the fight was difficult and it was referential. Like points in the fight, he pulls out Azul's weapon, and he even starts walking like Azul. His body language changes to Azul, and then same with Rosso. He gets Rosso's the Crimson Sword, and then he gains a more a feminine gait. Everything, like, it's just this. It's a work of art. Like, it's there for the people that really care about that stuff, but it doesn't bog the story down. There's a lot of stuff like that they do that's really less is more. And as you were kind of talking about, like, not needing to dump giant expositional stuff.
Yeah.
This is the way that they still tell stories, is with these details. And Remake showed us that to a bit. I mean, there's no doubt in my mind that they are really confident in the product they're making. So one of the things I want to bring up is or talk about is, I think we all had predictions going into this, like, what's this going to cover? And for me, one of the things I was surprised it didn't cover was Avalanche. Like, Avalanche is there, obviously, but I thought we were going to get maybe, explanations for things like Jesse and who took the gloves off of her dead body, etc. And how did Biggs get there, and why is Wedge for sure alive, because he's for sure alive, etc. Things like that, and stuff about Rufus, but we got very little about that. And even, like, I think almost every theory crafter was, like, somewhat convinced that there was going to be some for sure proof that Neo would end up being Nelly, and Finn would end up being, Polk, and that Al would end up being Billy Bob. Like, and there would be some exposition of that. The fact that there wasn't, it didn't really disappoint me, but instead what it did is it pointed me to the possibility, especially because of the Godo detail, that we're going to get a lot more of, the political struggle that is Avalanche in future parts of Remake. And the other thing that actually points me in that direction was the Fort Condor vibe. And we can get to Fort Condor on its own. But what did you guys think? What were some predictions that you made that maybe didn't, that you were surprised they didn't go, or I
thought that
yeah,
I thought that Yuffie was going to be, like, integral to everybody. I had this moment where I was like, wait a second, she's encountering the Corneo lackeys. She's going to be the one who got Tifa to go to Wall Market. She's going to be the one who, took Biggs out. She's going to be the one who saved, grabbed Jesse's gloves, met with Ketchi, whatever. I mean, that was just fun conjecture. I'm not, like, as you guys know, I'm not so deep into the theory stuff. I'm more just, appreciate the story. But yeah, I think that's what I expected more.
yeah.
Again, I wasn't, like, married to it, so I wouldn't say I was, like, dead wrong or anything. But I feel I was actually happy with what they did, because I was fine with her not being a part of everything just for the sake of it's this kind of storytelling device where everything has to be perfectly connected is not always the best choice.
No, it can.
Like, everything is perfectly puzzle pieced together. So I think what I like about it is kind of what we were just saying. There's no exposition and everything on that scale, fun as it is in the Kojima games and everything. Like, show don't tell has been the massive strength of Remake so far, part one and this, and we're just seeing more and more of that. And as I said a million times before, the mark of good storytelling in my book is it's there, it's easy to digest for people who want to enjoy it quickly, but for people like us who want to dive in and look at every pixel and every detail and every story beat and characterization, we do get deeply rewarded for that if we look into it. But you don't, like, have to do that, or you can't understand it.
Right.
So this is where I think they've leveled up as storytellers. And this is where I think hopefully it shows people, like, what Nomura can do when he's not given, like, 80 Disney characters, like, has to work them all into a cohesive story. He can do this show don't tell, very more sophisticated way of storytelling, and not need to have a very convoluted way of explaining everything. Which, as I always joke, I'm sure we've all done this, the three of us. try to explain FF7 story to someone who has no idea about it. It's near impossible. Like, it's so hard to just explain it because it's so convoluted. I love it. I don't use convoluted as a negative term, but it's a very complicated, in-depth story, right? So I think they're actually taking a step in the right direction by not making it so dependent on understanding all that stuff. It's first about the characters.
Yeah.
So I think that's what I've seen a lot more.
What do you think, Ray?
Well, as far as like, predicting stuff, I really thought that Sonnen and Yuffie were gonna snatch Biggs and maybe even Jesse's body from the wreckage and everything.
Yeah.
I'm glad it didn't happen because there's sometimes when I make a prediction and it'll happen, I'm like, oh, cool. And then sometimes when I make a prediction and it doesn't happen, I'm super excited because I'm like, I really got no idea what they're doing now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Same,
So
yeah.
as a fan, I don't want to predict everything. I do
Yeah.
it because people like it, and I
Yeah.
enjoy doing it. But it's like placing a bet. You know what I mean? If you win every bet you place, well, it's no fun anymore. You
Right.
know what I mean?
Game's over. Yeah.
So I look at all this as like just place your bets.
Totally.
It's funny because like before I could finish intermission, somebody, because you get YouTube notifications of people comment on your stuff on your phone or whatever, and somebody left a comment and they were like, it was like 7 minutes and something marked on the video. They're like, dude, you predicted it to a T, to the detail. And I was like, I don't want to look. I'm not looking. I haven't finished it.
Yeah.
I didn't
Yeah.
know what they were talking about, you know. But it was the way Sonnen died, because in the video I was like, I could see it, him being escaping, and that blood is Sonen's on Yuffie's face.
Yep.
Like he gets impaled by, Nero's wing blades, and
There
he
you
gets
go.
pulled into the darkness where he plays with his catches or whatever. I was just kind of like spitballing, knowing what happens and knowing kind of who's in it. And
Yeah.
and sometimes you have a big swing and a miss, but it's all fun. Like I love not knowing and
Yeah.
having a strong idea and then being like poof. Like I'll have a lot of like fans of other YouTubers and stuff. They're like, well, this guy said this. I'm like, well, we're all right now, but we're all also wrong right now. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? That's the fun
Yes.
of it.
Oh,
I love the storytelling aspect of doing the predictions.
Yes.
One big thing I'm happy they didn't do was I'm happy that, and it's what you all were touching on with Yuffie. Uh, I'm happy that Yuffie didn't have a stake in everything going on
Yep.
because it felt like she was dropped in the middle of this. It felt like you, as the player, through the narrative, were dropped in this chaos that's going on. You were dropped right in the middle of the second bombing run. Chaos. You were dropped in chaos. You were dropped in the middle of the second, well, pretty much failed bombing run, right? And everything that's going on with the slums and all the fallout from that, and Shinra looking for these guys, and you can't talk to them and associate. So it was like, I love the unpredictability of what's going on right now. And the whole thing, how do I word this? The whole thing going on with the world itself seems to be in flux. Like, because my theory is, and I don't want to get too much into theory right now because I know we'll get to that, but I feel my theory is as you play through Remake the first time, time is subtly changing. That timeline is subtly changing as you go because the story about Wu Tai changes throughout the game. First, the war is over. Then Wu Tai's still not conceding the war, and then by the time we get to the Shinra Tower, Cloud says, "Well, it's just a ceasefire. That means the war is just on pause." Like we have officially went from the war being over to by the end of it, it's like, "Oh, it's just a ceasefire now." I'm like,
Yep.
"Wait," and like subtle little changes. So I felt like you could feel that fluctuation as you're playing because the tone of the game changes. Once you go into the woods of Deep Ground, you get into Shinra, the tone completely changes. And I love that feeling of fluctuation, of uncertainty, kind of like, you know, I don't know, like I would think, I've never been in an earthquake, but I would think after an earthquake, you're uneasy like the whole time. Like you're playing a game of basketball or football, a pickup game, there's an earthquake, and then for like the next 24 hours, nothing's certain. That's kind of how it felt when I was playing through it. So I love that I didn't predict everything. I think that's beautiful. And like you said, uh, they really have leveled up the storytellers from Final Fantasy 15 to now. They have leveled up. I don't know what they've done differently. I don't know what decisions were made. And I'm a big fan of the gaming industry itself. I love the behind the scenes stuff, you know.
Mhm.
Kazushika Nojima, Tetsuya Nomura, as I consider them two main storytellers on this. Like everybody else is a director or making decisions, but I consider them the two main storytellers in this world.
Right.
They are working in such cohesion right now that we haven't seen before.
Oh yeah.
Like Nojima's story with Nomura's visual storytelling that we talked about last time, Baby
Yeah.
Steel. The little nods and notes to this and that. It kind of reminds me of the Lord of the Rings. You can watch the Lord of the Rings every frame, and Phil, you can test this as a filmmaker.
Oh yeah.
Every frame, everything. There's a story in everything in every frame. There's so much history in that world. I feel like that's what they're doing with Final Fantasy VII's world now, and I love it. I'm here for it.
I agree. Yeah, like you know, I know Sleep Easy right now, Baby Steel, they're literally doing, playthrough number whatever the hell for this game and like looking for stuff, and they're still finding so much stuff that they didn't
I'm not even joking.
so much.
I found something pertinent to what Sleep Easy's working on while I've been talking to you, and I just sent it to him. So that's the level we're at right now.
Yeah, it's incredible. And then again, it's great. Like you just said, is that, Nomura and Nojima together, like they are, like taking Sakaguchi out of it, they are the ones who made the story. Like if you look at the original credits of FF7, it says story by Sakaguchi and Nomura, and then like Nojima wrote the script from their story treatment, right? So this is
Yeah.
it. Like this is their characters, this is their story, and they keep like kind of just proving to us again and again, bonking us in the head, like, oh, they really know these characters. Holy shit. Like again, Yuffie. One of my viewers, Jedge, said a beautiful thing. It's kind of like, this is the Yuffie that I remember, even though we've never known this Yuffie, right? It's like it's taken from a memory that doesn't exist, but it makes perfect sense. Like that's how good it is, and we have to compliment their sort of caricature Lego characters back in the day that they got that much across with a couple lines of dialogue for Yuffie, and to be able to bring it into this modern storytelling, visual acting space, with lighting effects and everything, acting, motion capture, to be able to retain that while changing her so much. It's just incredible. It's an incredible feat, and it just kind of also proves how young the medium of gaming is as far as like telling stories.
Right.
The fact that, with a controllable camera, you're able to go look for stuff, but then we get the cutscenes, which in the Lord of the Rings way, we still get to pick up that just richly sprinkled frame, with details and the choices they make mixed with our choices. So it's this interactive storytelling, and it's just glorious.
It is.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I fully agree. So okay, we've waxed poetic about the game, and we're hitting the hour mark, and so before we get into what I think everybody's interested in, which is, what happened at the end. Was there any, do you have any wild, I guess we'll start with Ray, because this is kind of his deal. Did you catch any details that got your theory brain just moving and swirling?
Sorry. Yeah. Some of it has to do with that ending, but
Yeah.
for me, that ending cinematic where they're traveling together, right? And we talked about the tone shift. I felt like the whole time in intermission, it was Square Enix talking to the fans. Because, there were a lot of people who didn't like, a lot of friends of mine who just hated Remake. And like you said earlier, their voices are justified, because it's their opinion. I loved it, and I'm not shy about that. And I felt like intermission the whole time was the developers talking to you directly, saying, "This is where it's going. This is where we're going. This is where we're going. This is where we're going." As far as tone, as far as like what to expect. There's a part where Aerith and she's talking to everybody, and I think it's right as it's starting to rain or as the weather is changing, and she says, "My stomach's in knots."
Right.
You know, what
Mhm.
happens when your stomach's in knots? Now that could also tie to
The
what
thing.
happens at the
Yeah.
end.
Yep.
Absolutely does. But I think also what it is the developers telling you it's about to get rough. Like when you're getting
Mhm.
into a tense situation in life, the storm is coming, things are a little uneasy, your stomach gets in knots. I think they're telling us, hey, this
A-
story's about to get, it's going zero dark 30. This story's about to
absolutely.
get very dark.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And I think that was what they were telling us there at the end. Storm's coming, it's starting to rain, her stomach's going in knots. And the look at Calm, the way it was in the distance as this was happening, and then they slowly start to move that direction, the way the camera panned up kind of reminded me of like Stephen King. It kind of
Mm,
reminded me of like a Stephen King movie.
mm.
And it didn't show Calm in like a way where it's like, yay, here we're going to Calm. It was like foreboding almost. It's
Yeah.
like, okay, we're gonna kick off. Now I got goosebumps talking about it with you right now, actually. But like
Yeah. Yeah.
the it's almost like they're saying, hey, this is where we're kicking off the second game. You want the story, you're gonna get the flashback. This is where the game turns on its head. Like in the original game, that calm is where the story turned. That's when you first figured out there's something not right with Cloud. You know what
Mhm.
Yeah.
I mean? This calm is where it's going to happen, like full force. Because what did Cloud do when they were walking together? He looked at Barrett. He was kind of Joe walking along. He smiled. He was like,
Mhm.
you know, kind of like in a very throwaway, haphazard kind of way. It's about to go south. And I think in remake when it starts going south for Cloud, I think it's going to happen fast. I think it's going to be just like one of those 70-foot water slides, at like Kings Island or something like that. It's going to be wild. And I felt like, without talking about the other thing we're going to talk about, that was the big takeaway for me.
Mhm.
That and man, I have always wanted to see the battle between Sephiroth and Godo during the war. The
Yeah.
just like two samurai masters going at it, Godo having Sephiroth almost taking him, and then Sephiroth battling him. I've always wanted to see this last samurai battle between Godo and Sephiroth. You know
You,
what I mean?
Oh, you got to
oh,
hear my
Phil,
You're walking around going
Phil,
at it. You know what
Phil, go for
I
it.
mean? Yeah, so I
talking about this for
think we're gonna get to
months.
see that stuff because they're building this world in a way. They said, Godo's a prisoner of war. Godo, he's a drunk now. He's like he's down and out. It's a totally different Wu Tai. And as somebody who loves to world build in theory craft, I'm like, man, I can't wait to get to Wu Tai. If it's game 2, game 3, I'm here. I can't wait to see what's going on. But
Uh,
as far as like, predicting things or whatever, just the thing I took for intermission was it was setting a tone. And the tone is going to be very dark moving forward. They ended it with the whole Vice Nero thing. That wasn't Vice and Nero, it was just Nero. That's how they ended the game, was Nero, and Yuffie
Mhm.
barely escaped with her life. And then what does she see? The most horrifying visual we've seen so far with the plate collapsing into fire and destruction. That was horrifying. I said live on stream, I was like, holy shit, that was horrifying. You know what I mean? And she
that's
walked right to the edge. Like it's kind of symbolic too, you're on the edge. You're right to the edge of basically the end of the world right there. That's where the game 2 is going to start. You're at the edge of the end of the world. That's what's going on. And then they transition into the main party walking. The storm's coming. Aerith's got knots in her stomach. She's tied to the planet, even though she maybe can't talk to it right now. She's still tied to it as a Cetra. Lots of thematic, lots of like tone setting stuff going on, and visually, I thought it was very well done. So that's what I'm excited for after intermission, and what we're going to talk about as well.
For all of those in the chat who are just like who know what Philip is about to pop off about, just know I had no idea. This is not a setup. Nobody knew.
it's a setup.
So
They played us like a damn fiddle. No, yeah, I've been talking about the same thing. It's insane. It's insane, man. I'll say it real quick because I said this on the last show, right? Like
Mhm.
my idea with Sephiroth is that I'm a big fan of the Greek mythos, and I keep comparing it to the Iliad. And if you think about it, one detail I noticed was that Sephiroth has the Masamune, right? Of course. What is the only place that uses Asian-esque weapons in the entire world of Gaia? It's Wutai. Why does Sephiroth have a katana? Nobody else in China, except I guess if we count Vice, in the new Dirge Cerberus
But
era.
that's like a gun blade.
Yeah, it's a gun blade. It's not just like a traditional katana.
Yeah.
So why does he have a katana? Like when nobody else in the entire world has any Asian, it's all, long swords, European weapons, mixed with modern machine guns and stuff. So why does he have that? And then I said, can you imagine if sort of because Sephiroth is the best warrior on Earth. How do you become the best warrior on Earth? You defeat the strongest warrior on Earth, right? To get that title. So perhaps sort of the Hector to Sephiroth's Achilles, if we're going by the Iliad, was the greatest warrior of Wutai. And it could be Goto for all we know, right? But maybe that was his weapon, the Masamune. And he had this long rivalry in the way, the 10-year war of the Trojan War. Hector and Achilles have this rivalry, and then of course he really wants to kill Hector when Patroclus dies. He really wants to avenge him. But unfortunately, little does he know, sadly, he's essentially destroying himself as he kills Hector, and he only realizes this later. But Hector took Patroclus's armor, which was Achilles' armor, right? So he's actually wearing, when they confront themselves, Achilles' armor. So in this beautiful symbolic way, he's killing himself. The visual is him fighting himself in his own armor, right? And he has new. And that's essentially what they could do with Sephiroth when he's so lonely his whole life because he's so powerful. He's so much more powerful than anybody. He's nobody to relate to. And the only guy I could have related to was the wielder of the Masamune. He kills him, takes his weapon, and then just kind of cements his complete loneliness in the world. He has nobody, unless we count like Genesis and those guys. Like there's nobody even on his level, right? So I think that would be such a cool thing. And I hadn't even thought about the fact it could be Goto. So I love that spin on it.
Yeah.
It's great.
That's I would love to see Goto. And we're gonna. There's no way we're not going to see, that whole thing expanded. Which brings me to
I always want to see is that fight.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. We have to see him. I want to see him like slaughtering thousands of people on the field. Like, how do you become known so much as a hero? You have to do that stuff. I would love to see it.
Yeah, I would because Crisis Core, Crisis Core was Crisis Core, and it was supposed to depict that part of Sephiroth's career, and you only see him kind of just one hit KO Ifrit and stuff like that, but it would be nuts to see him just turn Wutai into a field of corpses. I'm not sure that's going to happen, but still, I like that kind of development. And I will say that of all the things that I'm most excited about that I think was alluded to, the kind of weirdest wild brain thing that I'm willing to share right now anyways, is that the Maul. So Scarlet talks about the Maul. And there's some other stuff there that makes me think that they're going to make it really at least clear to close watchers that at this entire time Rufus has been pulling the strings on Avalanche. That seems like something they're really digging into. There's still kind of this lingering question: why could Rufus see the whispers? And it's most likely because he's a big player, and because he's been chosen to see them. Because ultimately, that seems to be a couple of ways the whispers see you, and that's probably one of them. As much as you could argue about that, and I know because I have Reddit really likes to argue with me about that. So I think the thing to do now is to get into it. So the ending was nuts. It was controversial. It was it wasn't actually that controversial. But we'll we will get into that now, and I think the best way to do that is I'm actually going to show the ending
All right.
for everyone. So it's a good refresher. So again, if you haven't seen this ending,
leave.
Although, you know, just note that these pores that you see on the screen weren't something I rendered. So, all right. Without further ado, here's the ending of Intermission.
Don't think I can do this alone. The amazing Yuffie wants you! Join her team and the sky's the limit!
Hey, Barrett? Were you really walking the whole way?
Yep.
Calm's still pretty far, though, isn't it?
Another full day, give or take.
Question. When my mom says a full day, she means from the time you get up in the morning till the time you go to bed. But for me, it means from the time you get up in the morning, all the way through till the time you get up the next morning. So, which is it for you?
Gotta go with Elmira on that one.
That's a relief.
Is it, though?
Cloud, bet you've had to hoof it from sunup to sundown tons of times. This is all just same old, right?
That's right. But even so, we're all gonna need to stop and rest. Especially you.
Yeah, I know. Anyway, marching into the unknown ain't easy. But don't worry, because I'm here to lead the way.
That's comforting.
Of course it is! Alright, everyone, let's stop here for a minute. Leader's orders. Now breathe in that fresh air. Oh.
Huh?
Actually, scratch that. Let's, save it for later. When we're not so close to Midgard.
Guess this is goodbye, City of Mako.
Like this?
Yep, just like that.
Cool.
No way! A car!
What is it with these damn birds?
Sorry about that.
No need to apologize, man.
at that. Where's a roof when you need one?
Gonna be okay?
Should be, but weird. My stomach's in knots.
That's its way of telling you it's hungry. Let's move.
It's been a while, huh? Long time no see. How you been? Listen. Hey. I'm back! Aerith?
So, guys, you guys start.
Philip, you have the floor, sir. You go first.
So before we even talk about the Zach stuff, I just, from what we were talking about earlier, I can't express enough how crazy it is that the 5-second walk to calm got a short film, probably $100K budget to do that pre-rendered. like It's insane. We don't deserve this shit. Second of all, what we were saying earlier about sort of the layering, this, if you're ever worried about like them kind of going off the rails with this stuff, at least be assuaged with the fact that while it's a lot of sub gifts, holy shit, that's amazing.
Silent L, thank you so much.
That's
oh my
crazy.
God. Thank you so much.
Holy shit. But if you're worried about it, just be assuaged with the fact that the amount of care they're taking, the amount of detail-oriented care they're taking, how well they're planning it, in just the Aerith, analysis we're doing here, what she says when the rain comes down, her stomach is in knots, which is obviously talking about her fate in the original, which is, okay, could be talking about Zach, could be talking about this, could be talking about the church, the kids holding his stomach in the church. Like, the amount of layering and sort of rich detail that's rewarding when you look into it that they put into just that scene, which is completely invisible if you just enjoy the scene. Say, cut off the Zach stuff. It's just a fun little short film, right? You don't even need those details. But the fact that they put them in for us to like dig into for a year or whatever until the next one comes out is just, it's mind blowing. So if you're worried, just be, feel better with the fact that the insane planning they're doing. This isn't, Star Wars 7, 8, and 9 director, script writer roulette insanity where it's like, hey, we'll just do whatever. We'll fix it in the next one. So that's my first. Yeah, it's not like a middle school writing class, exercise like those movies. It's insane. So what we have in this is this great thing, and then like I've said before, this whole ending made me feel good with what I said originally. I feel like the remake is going to be, we get all of our favorite stuff remade, just like part 1, and then at the end we get this awesome extra stuff sprinkled on top. That's like, okay, we never get to fight Sephiroth, like Advent Children style, like sword to sword, besides like the 2-second mind sort of cutscene at the end. We never get that fight, in like a Midgar setting. Sephiroth is the whole gang fighting him. You fight him in this big, Seraph form, this Bizarro form. You don't fight him as a human. So that's awesome. We get that sprinkled on top. But I was actually talking to Night Sky Prince in an awesome DM yesterday. We were talking about the ending, like, holy shit, what do you think? And that's another thing I said is like, man, for a lot of people who don't like the new stuff, you'll probably just like have modders when it's all done, be able to just take it all out, and then you'll just have like a remake that does all your favorite scenes. Take out the Sephiroth fight, take out that scene, just have the calm video, cut off Zach, cut a lot of the new stuff, And it's just nice to see that like we do get to have our cake and eat it, which is what I said right when I finished it, which I still can't believe. You have weirdos like me who just want that for the entire game, like a short film, you know, of a 2 second thing, a segment like that, with character studies and just fun stuff, and characterization. That we get that plus the theories, plus the stuff we get to dive into. They don't just give us a game, and like now you have to wait for the next one. It's they give us this stuff to look into. Here's some cool clues with what's happening next. And for me, it feels like the end of FF7 original. Like when I see these crazy twists and stuff, I'm just like, oh, this is crazy. Like I'm sitting here looking at my friends on the streamer. This is insane. What does this mean? You know, watching it again because it's like, you know, when you think Sephiroth's beaten and then you go into this, you know, you pass out and go into like a wormhole, different dimension to fight him inside your mind, his real self and stuff. It's like, I don't even know what's happening. This is crazy. I've never seen anything like this. So that's what I get from this. It just brings me to that headspace again of being a kid as well and sort of the wonder that they can do with Final Fantasy. But the problem is, or not the problem, the good thing is they have the storytelling chops now, like we were talking about, to make it all just cohesive and coherent and make sense and just kind of glued together perfectly. So it just made me feel great. But like we talked about earlier, I hate being spoiled in every way. One of those ways is guessing it. I hate guessing what's going to happen. It drives me insane. I think it's the mark of a not good story if I can guess what happens. Now, of course, sometimes it's inevitable if you have the entire world for 2 years thinking of every possible outcome and like drafting them on, you know, boards with strings and stuff. Like somebody might guess it. But it's usually not the case with a good story, right? There'll usually be some surprises, or if it happens, it'll be in a different way or, you know, more meaningful way. So I love the fact that I saw that and I'm like, oh, okay. I don't know. My first thought is that it's most likely, and this is what I was saying to Night Sky in our DM, like I don't really know exactly where it goes, but I feel like either maybe he's in an afterlife, he's in a different place, but I feel he's absolutely not in like the world of Cloud and those guys because number one, he's dead in this world. Cloud has his sword, right? So unless like there's two swords, that's insanity. They won't go that route. You know, he's gone. So he's not in this world. I think it's either an afterlife situation, and then I feel, which I've said, I think in our talk with Night Sky on his channel, I said that I really think that everybody can be happy. Every single person who hates it, everybody who loves it. I do think it's possible, and I think they do this probably by keeping the spirit of the themes of the original. One of the ways they could do this is, for example, Zack. What did Aerith say to Sephiroth at the end of the first one? She said, "Everything's wrong about you. Like you don't belong here. Something's off. Like you're not from this world. Something's very wrong here." So I feel like in Zack's world, maybe he survived because fate itself was disrupted, but there's a cost to that. Like we're seeing something was taken away, maybe is one of the theories I know with Aerith. Maybe something's just like removed. She's not there. What happened to Cloud? What's this like foreboding feeling? This tainted Aerith's theme we feel, you know, in this like off key, different key, the song and everything. It's very interesting. And I feel maybe the message is eventually like, you know, you have to let go of those people who pass on, you know, even though we miss them and we love them, which I feel is part of the original, right? And like Cloud kind of coming to terms with that. And we have to grow up. We have to let them go. It's a part of life. It's kind of like the Yuffie DLC. And I feel maybe that's still the message at the end of all this. Like maybe Zack has to come to terms with that, whether it's like an afterlife, live stream, fever dream for him, or if it's him being in that realm. Like maybe he'll do something to help us. Maybe we'll never see him. But even if we do, you know, he has to go and he has to come to terms with that. We have to come to terms with that. So that's just some vague conjecture, but pretty much it excites the hell out of me. Execution is just, it's so incredible. And again, it's so not random. That's all I can say. When I see stuff like Star Wars, I get so offended when I put so much time into like theorizing something and then it's spit in my face. Like, oh, yeah, it doesn't even matter. Like, they're changing the shit on every day. And like, it's totally incoherent. That's so annoying as someone who invests yourself in something, right? It's like the end of Game of Thrones, just because he didn't finish the story too, right? Which I won't spoil, but you can tell they're just like, yeah, whatever. We'll just end it. And it's so annoying when your investment is kind of spat in your face. That's why I always mention Brandon Sanderson, my favorite author. So that's my stance on this, basically. And I'm sure we'll get into more, but I definitely want to hear what you guys think too.
Of course. Ray.
So I actually really like what you said, Phil, about there being like a deeper meaning to what's going on with Zach and all that kind of thing. I really dig that perspective. But what I think's going on, and I spoke about this before on the podcast. I think Zach is actually live in that world. So originally, my theory hasn't changed. It's still kind of like in play. If you're putting all your cards and all your chips in the center, mine's still in play because my original prediction was he's either one of two places, one of two things going on with Zach. I thought maybe he was part of Avalanche and Wu Tai. Not anymore. That's not happening. The other thing I had said was he was reacquisitioned by Shinra. Like when we see Zach and Cloud, that after image of them, when Aerith feels that they had come that way, she sensed something had happened there before. We were seeing, in my opinion, what had happened 2 or 3 months or whatever it was before when they survived. Because the story lays out some ground rules, basically, and you all know how to pick out these things. For instance, when the whispers or the cries of the planet, when they want to affect someone, like let's say Phil's going to shoot me, they're not going to make sure if they want me to survive this, they're not going to move me out of the way so that I can't get hit by the bullet. They're going to mess with Phil to make him miss me. Like whatever the point of target is, they're going to mess with that. That's what they did the whole time. They wanted Jesse to be delayed and everything, so they had to delay everyone else. They had to mess with everybody, but eventually they messed directly with Jesse, made her fall and mess around.
They molested the molester. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So there's points throughout the whole story. They didn't want them to get to the pillar too early. They were going to get to the pillar too early. Cloud, Tifa, and Sephiroth.
Yeah.
Cloud, Tifa, and Aerith. They were going to get there too early. They stopped them from getting there too early. Like Jesse was gonna blow up the helicopter with the grenade. The Whisper showed up and messed with her directly. They messed with everybody directly. So at the end of it, you don't see the Whispers messing with Zack. You see them flying in and out around the Shinra troops to make sure he survives. I feel like, I've talked about this before, but the planet is like, okay, Sephiroth's been messing with us. That purple thing in the middle of the Harbinger, that's Sephiroth's prison. And Sephiroth tricked everyone into breaking him out of prison, basically, by telling you that the Whispers are the enemy, basically, leading you to believe the Whispers are the enemy. You got to go in here and you got to take them out. Really, they were keeping his essence at bay in this other realm of the life stream. So I talk about all this to get to the Zack thing. So Zack survives his encounter with Shinra because the planet's last-ditch effort, ace in the hole, to counter whatever Sephiroth is doing. It's like, hey, let's go back because the planet, it's eternal. It can do anything. It's like, let's go back and let's rewind the tape and edit this piece of the film out and put this piece back in and fast forward back to where we're at. That's what they did with Zack, I think. And so when Aerith sees Zack hauling Cloud to Midgar, he's like, okay, we're almost there, buddy. We've made it. We're almost there. And like even when Zack is knocked down by that explosion over Midgar, that is the exact moment that they defeat the Whispers. So that moment is felt throughout all realms of time. So I feel like that the moment they defeat the Whispers, Zack feels that. He sees that explosion right there at Midgar. Because the same like fireworks, like the twinkly stuff falling down, that's the same stuff you see in Sector 7 falling down. It's fate being defeated for good or ill. So Sephiroth is on the rampage, he's on the loose, but he doesn't know that Zack lived. He knows everything. Because I think this is a cyclical time loops, the same time cycle, because Dirge of Cerberus tells us
Final Fantasy 1,
What's that?
It's like Final Fantasy 1,
Right,
time.
yeah. Dirge of Cerberus tells us on the Shera when they're seeing the hologram of the planet dying and going into the bigger life stream. What that showed us in Dirge of Cerberus, that's what Sephiroth shows Cloud at the end, the edge of creation. And so when everything's destroyed, you can't destroy energy. You can only put it somewhere else and make it something else. So what would happen? It'd be like another big bang. Creation starts over. So another time loop. So I think this Sephiroth knows that. He knows Zack's dead. So what does the planet do? It goes back, it saves Zack. and keeps him from dying. And now he's here. Now, the really cool thing to speculate on for me is like, okay, what happened in the last couple of months between Zack poofing at the Midgar with Cloud on his shoulder and one Buster Sword? One Buster Sword. I think that's the red herring here. The stamp bag and the other Buster Sword are the red herring.
Mm-hmm.
Because I also feel like Square Enix is also trying to keep the fans off the scent. So there's going to be some red herrings out there because they know people like us are going to pick this thing apart all day, you know?
Yeah.
So what happened between that point and Zack going to the church where Zack's just like, hey, I'm back. Hey, what's up?
Yeah,
What's
where's
happened
Cloud?
with him? So now you have to look at the church, right? It makes a point to lower down to the floor and show us the flowers are flattened because Cloud has already landed kaput through the roof of the church. That's why they're flat. You know, it's still flat right there. He ruined the flowers. So they're still flat. But those people are sitting there crying and seeking refuge because I feel like those are either victims or people that had people die in Sector 7, which is right next door. So they're like refugees. I think that's who those people are. Now, you got to look at Shinra. I look at Shinra, I go, okay, Rufus is in charge now. He's been bankrolling Avalanche and feeding them information incognito. So Scarlet doesn't care about Neo Midgar so much. You know, Rufus don't care about Neo Midgar. So if nobody cares about Neo Midgar anymore, or if someone thinks that that's the case, and you don't need Aerith anymore, who is still going to be obsessed with finding Aerith within Shinra? Hojo.
Yeah.
Because she's my specimen. Now, go back to that facility where you fight the, what was it called? The unknown entity?
Unknown
Is that what it's
experiment.
called?
Yeah.
Yeah, the unknown experiment where Barrett blows that wall down and the whispers keep you out.
Yeah.
You can't see this. Nobody can see this. I think Zack was reacquisitioned by Shinra, and he was in there. And I say that because remember the eerie shot of Cloud being activated like a doll? You know, his eyes were dilated. I feel like he was in there too. And I don't know how Cloud wound up at the Sector 7 station. He could have been like dumped off. Well, Hojo said he was a failed experiment. Maybe they dumped him out with the trash or something, you know? But I feel like Zack was still in there because I feel like Zack is kind of an ace in the hole for Hojo. Aerith's out there. Now, they keep tabs on everybody in Soldier, you would think. Anybody in the Soldier program, they know what you're doing every moment of the day. They got cameras on you. They would know that Zack and Aerith were a thing. Hojo for sure would know Zack and Aerith were a thing. Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
That was going down in Midgar underneath their watch,
yeah.
you know? So he would know they're a thing. So Hojo's like, okay, if Aerith ever gets away and I need to find her or whatever, we got Zack back. I'll just send him to find her. See, Zack doesn't know he's under the control of Hojo. I feel like that's what's going on. I feel like he's one of Hojo's experiments, like he's reacquisitioned it. And we know that they can mess with your memories. They can mess with who you think you are. They can mess with all this because they did it with Cloud. Yeah. And that was 5 years prior. So that technology has advanced. You know, I say that to say that Hojo could pull it off. As far as the second Buster Sword, I'm like, it's not like the Sword in the Stone with King Arthur. It was manufactured by Shinra. So they could say something like,
it was not.
How was it made?
The Buster Sword, the Buster Sword was paid with by essentially the blood of Angeal. So Angeal's father died paying for that to be manufactured. He had a swordsmith in his town, and he paid the blacksmith. Yeah,
but it could be made.
Well, yeah, it could be made, I suppose. But I mean, it was a. I do not think they're going to red herring the Buster Sword. I think the origin of that will stay intact.
Well, I'm just saying it could be made. So that's kind of where I'm going with it right now. Is like, I feel like Zack being around. I think it happens in this timeline, and I'm not against the time travel stuff. I'm not against it. But my thing is, I feel like there has to be a precedent for it in the story. Like, you know, Final Fantasy 1, Final Fantasy 8, Chrono Trigger, Back to the Future, you know. Yeah. I feel like up to this point, there has never been like in the world of Final Fantasy VII a precedent for time travel. Like at
Well,
this point, it would almost come off to me as lazy. Like, oh, now we're time traveling. We're gonna write this in here to explain. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah,
I
yeah,
agree.
I do. Yeah,
Yeah, I think
that's
the main
why
issue if they
I'm not
have a
against the time travel thing if there was a precedent for it already set within the narrative. But we've
yeah.
got so many iterations of Final Fantasy VII at this point to put it in now would seem like you're trying to shoehorn it in there to explain this throwing off of the fans you're trying to pull off, which is working, you know.
yeah,
Uh,
it's true.
so that's what I think is going on with Zach. I think it's something with Hojo. I think it's because my prediction was like Aerith this time around. I think she still dies, but I think it's going to be something like Zach slips on a banana peel trying to save her, or something like, or his cellular degradation sets in. Genova takes control of him, and he attacks the party, or he goes after Aerith. Because when he's exposed to Aerith and Cloud, there's going to be a WTF moment for both of them. If Cloud's not already broken at that point, he
he's
will
done.
break.
Yeah.
Because he's not going to know, because he was involved in that time change, but we don't know that he's aware of it because of his experimentation. He would still think maybe that Zach is dead, So
Right.
that's the big. If you're trying to figure things out, there's still no matter what theory you've got, there's still so many pitfalls.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
that's the fun part of it, right?
Yeah, that's the genius of it. Yeah,
yes.
I agree.
So it's like Christmas to me. I'm like, oh man, okay.
Oh yeah, exactly. Well,
So-
I think what you said too about like time travel, as long as it doesn't have to be 100% hard magic system, but yeah, I agree. Like there has to be some, so it's not just like out of thin air. There has to be some precedent. Now, I will say this though, I don't think so much it's like time travel, and I know there's a lot of people who love the idea of being like Advent Children Sephiroth in the beginning there, which I agree would be a sweet concept too. But I think I'm more of the idea that like there is a precedent in this universe for like wormholes and different dimensions and stuff. Like I was joking about the ending earlier, right? And I actually said this on Twitter because I had like a bunch of mean comments and messages that I'm dumb because I think the Zach ending is good and stuff. So like I said this as a counter to that. I was like, saying that Zach being in a different dimension is a bridge too far in a story that has Sephiroth reconstruct his body in the living blood of a planet because his will is stronger than death, plus a wormhole dimension outside of time to fight his incorporeal self is odd to say the least. Right. So I think that's already in the story. Like you go through a wormhole at the end of some for like a minute straight and you're going through all these crazy things. You arrive in like a nothingness space outside of time. As far as we know, Cloud just kind of knocks out for a second. And it's like, it's insanity. So I think, and they've already established this, when he goes to the edge of creation, it's clearly where he fights Sephiroth at the end of the original game, right? He like goes through this portal and arrives in this different dimension. So I think with the Zack stuff, for example, as long as they even just use that visual language they've established of like that transportation system, whatever it is, and then hopefully explain it through the planet or whatever, I think it could be done. But again, it's more about characterization, that sort of thing. It's more about the believability of the characterization, the acting, and the script for me personally. It's kind of like we talk about Dirge of Cerberus, right? A lot of cool ideas, a lot of interesting concepts. It's just when you put it that mixed with already crazy ideas like that, very creative, in the Kojima-esque package, it tends to come very heavy-handed, right? So if they keep to this show don't tell style and give us enough hints of a hard magic system, like for example at the end of the story, I would love to hear more. But like we see Sephiroth literally slice a portal through fate itself, right? And then go into literally a different dimension. Like he walks through and then you follow him and it's like opposite Midgar, like backwards Midgar and stuff. Like what is that, right? So there's definitely some precedent for different realm, different dimensions, and I wouldn't say time so much, but just like some sort of different opposite realm, which could also be Zach, or maybe like an opposite reality. Hence, he survives, maybe Cloud doesn't. Like there, a lot of people have theorized maybe Zach gets his own party, and it's gonna be like Jesse, Biggs, and Wedge or something like in that timeline. Or in that, I keep saying timeline out of habit, in that dimension or something, and then it's kind of the opposite, but the people who died are alive in that one, and then Cloud, Tifa, Aerith, and Barrett are dead or something. Who knows, right? Like they're the heroes. But yeah, I think as long as it's established, but for me personally, it's much more about scripts, delivery, characterization, acting. That's what makes anything believable, in my opinion. So as long as they deliver on that front, like I loved what you said, Ray. I had never thought of that at all. That is so cool. Like Sephiroth being in prison and stuff. It's all great if delivered well. That's kind of my stance on all of it.
Right. And yeah, like everything, like I said, at this point we're all just spitballing really because we don't know. I wish I could be a fly on the wall
Mhm.
in like Nojima or Nomura's office, you know what I
Mhm.
mean? But the part at the end where Sephiroth and Cloud they go to the edge of creation and everything, I kind of just I kind of visualize that as, the moment where Cloud lands his sword right there, like
Mhm.
he's only gone for a few seconds because I feel like that all happens in Cloud's mind because
Mhm.
Sephiroth is a part of Cloud. He is a fracture of his mind at this point
Yeah.
because the experimentation, he's in there. Just like he showed Cloud the fire in Nibelheim in chapter 2 and everything, and he's
Yep.
always appearing where nobody else can see him. He's in Cloud's mind. So I feel like that right there at the end was all happening mentally with Cloud. But it could be another plane. I felt like the whole reverse Midgar area was like a different plane of existence within the life stream. Like the
Mhm.
whispers are a direct connection to the life stream.
Yep.
So Sephiroth can like slice that open and get in there, which no idea how the hell he did that. But not
It's
even an idea of how he did that.
it's awesome. Yeah.
But
Well, I
I
mean,
feel like
it makes sense that if he's Genova, and Genova seems to be the antithesis of the live stream, or like has the ability to affect and infect it.
yeah.
I think it'd be through that mechanism.
But I think of the life stream as not like a river of energy that runs through the planet, which it is. But like I think there's more levels. I look at the life stream like the afterlife, and there's
Mm,
different planes of existence within it.
yeah,
And I think there's
Maybe
like
like
that
Inferno.
area they were
Yeah.
in. There's different levels. Yeah, my theory, and like the whole dark reverse Midgar place they were in. I think that
hmm
represented the dark life stream or the black
yeah,
life stream.
negative
Whatever
live
you call it.
stream.
It was real corrupt and real negative. It
Yeah.
was thunder, lightning, and chaos.
Yeah, no, I said the same thing. Like I love to think of Aerith and Sephiroth, and this is why I'm so glad we're gonna get like scenes with them together. It's so important from a storytelling.
Yes.
It's like they are the chess players, man. They are the antithesis. Like you have this pure, naturalistic, chthonic power, which is Aerith. Like she's supposed to be. She is, communicate. The planet made her. She is one with the planet. And then you have Sephiroth, literally alien. Like he's taking it by force. He's wrenching the knowledge out of the live stream. It's unnatural, wrong. And then it's so cool that they're diametrically opposed and they need to be played against each other well. And that's why I love that scene when they first see each other. Because in the original, they don't ever speak, as far as I know. He just kind of pokes her and leaves. And that's the first time they interact. So it's such a powerful thing. This is why I always kind of raise my eyebrows at people who are like, "Oh, the original is perfect. All the characters." I'm like, really? Aerith and Sephiroth like never interacting? I think they could expand on that a little bit, right? So I think that's so cool. I love to think of that natural versus unnatural. Like you said, this kind of wrong, corrupted life stream versus this thing. But they both have the powers in different ways. And he also has Genova and everything. So it's just so interesting. And I can't wait to see them expand on it, hopefully with a good mix of hard magic system to explain what's happening, but also breadcrumbs for us to dive into and kind of have fun with. I think if you over explain, it is also bad. Like you don't want to do too much.
But yeah, like, and I'm also excited because
Uh-oh. We're losing you, Ray Ray.
We lost it for a second, but
yes.
Oh,
okay.
You're back.
You're back. You're back.
You're gone.
Oh no.
You're gone again.
They took him. The whispers got him.
Take me. Don't take Ray.
Hey, I'm back.
You're back.
Oh, he's back.
And you were just in the middle of good stuff.
Vice is like, oh man, get him out. But no, like I'm excited. Like when I saw the Aerith mocap actress and the Sephiroth mocap actor, and she tweeted that they were shooting scenes together. I was like, yes. What's the Pope meme holding the thing?
Yeah.
I was like, that's how I felt because I was like you said, I was like, this is what we need. This is what I want. I want more. Yes. Great read, by the way, if nobody's read that. Great read.
Yeah.
Mitchell Gallagher. But yeah, I was like, this is what I want. Well, so like Pearson, I consider myself a Pearson in a way. I still feel like the original game is just perfect. But that doesn't mean we can't get more. As somebody who feasts
I
on
agree.
lore, like you all do,
Mm-hmm.
can't get enough, man. That's like even when I saw Advent Children, as mediocre as I thought kind of the story was or whatever in Advent Children, I was feasting because I was like, it's more,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So they're going back and doing this more between Sephiroth and Aerith. And like you said, Phil, this is something I hadn't thought about. Campfire scenes with everybody getting to know each other and talking. Vincent
Yeah.
being in a tree by himself and not want to talk to anybody, and Sid cussing by the campfire, and Barrett
exactly.
like, hey, preach, man, I get it, because Barrett and Sid are going to be the same age, like
Endless
I didn't think
possibilities.
about that. That's going to be awesome, man. That gives me so much to chew on. But yeah, more dialogue between the characters. That's how you deliver the story. Not with
Yes.
exposition dumps, but with the characters interacting with each other, and that's what I'm most excited about going forward.
Totally. Okay, so my take on the ending. One, just the music. The music was so good on every part of the ending. Like from the new version of On Our Way.
Incredible.
Just so good. Like it really got me excited for the world. Like it was a taste of that very first feeling when you get out of Midgar and the music kicks in and you're just like, you're out there.
Yep.
I felt that I felt my spine reverberating from inside my chest. Like I was so excited by just the feeling of that. And the music during the Zack reveal was so brilliant. It was this variant of Aerith's theme that was so menacing and foreboding, and it really it hit that exact tone that Ray talked about with the knots in the stomach. Like it set this idea for us, and I think those things have a lot more predictive power in a story like this than say, anime tropes. Like I think we're gonna see something much less tropey, and because of the way that these people historically tell stories, especially when they have the time to tell the stories they want to tell, and they have had a lot of time to tell the story. In terms of what was revealed, nothing was revealed. Absolutely nothing. There's nobody that I know other than like this bizarre set of like, absolute like, just I don't know. They're a very strange branch of people that I've encountered on the internet, and that were absolutely. Oh, thank you for the donation, G-Funk Jimmy. Thank you so much. That's awesome. I appreciate it.
Jimmy.
In the house. Like, okay, that we generally knew that Zack was alive. And we knew that whatever the mechanism of him being alive involved Stamp in the bags somehow. Like, and the reason we know that is in the Remake Ultimania interview, when asked point blank about it, Nomura Nojima said, Nomura was like, well, that's one of the mysteries we've set up, which is basically like him saying, yeah, he's alive. He's alive. You start preparing now. Okay. And Nojima was like, hey, did you notice Stamp? That was his answer to the question, why is Zack alive? His answer was, look at Stamp. Like, that's why Zack is alive. Was his direct 100% answer. So we knew that in order to, like, crack the door open on the mystery, they could go a couple of different directions. They could just show us that Zack is for sure alive, which we all kind of knew, or they could tell us where we're at, or when we're at, or in what universe we're in, or something. They could have shown Stamp, and they chose not to show Stamp, and they chose not to show Stamp on purpose. Like, they just extended the mystery, but they clarified it. And why I think that was such a good move is because they had an opportunity to respond to fan criticism and like pull back on whatever weird direction they're going. But instead they said, no, we're going in this direction because this is our creation. And we are telling this story, the story we want to tell. And so they just doubled down. That's really what they did. And why that excites me is because I am immensely more interested in the story they want to tell than the story they think we want to hear.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they definitely told us that that's what they're doing. Now, as far as the different possibilities, like, I change my mind on it a few times a day as to where I think this is going. I am, if you were to put a gun to my head, I'm like kind of 51-49 that what has happened is that Terrier Zach has walked into the Beagle world. Or that we're now in the Terrier timeline and that Beagle, Cloud, Tifa, Barrett, and Aerith, and Red 13 have walked into the Terrier timeline. And in that timeline, there were no Whispers. And so they are dead. Because all of them would not be alive were it not for the Whispers. The Whispers saved their lives on several occasions during the main story. That explains two Buster Swords. Two identical Buster Swords, by the way, with the exact same rusting pattern. Like, they straight up have the same rusting pattern. And in the same the same DreamWorks sequence. Like, at the back, in the back of the Chocobo truck. Same rust patterns. Like, it's the same sword. So, like, I think that what's happened is they found a way to bring them into the same timeline together. And it's possible. I sometimes vacillate. Hey, maybe Zach is in the afterlife, or he's in another timeline, and he's in the timeline that ultimately sets this thing in motion. Like, we don't even technically know if he's in, like, current Midgar. Like, the NPCs that are in that movie are NPCs that are seen in other CGI scenes in Remake, but that is not necessarily. They do a lot of cookie cutter NPC palette swap stuff, like they do. So it's hard to, like, say for sure that that's what's going on. But I mean, that's certainly a possibility too. And there's no one theory that I'm even like 30% sure is right. Like, that's how completely up in the air. That's how tactically open they've left it. And I think they've left it so open that being catastrophic about the way people think it's going to go, like, oh, death is now meaningless. We don't know that. We don't know what's going on. Like, we so don't know what's going on that we don't know what's meaningless. We don't know if things are like, I mean, if anything, it seems like they're leaning into extreme permanence. Like fate is gone. Like, any hope we have of, like, time janitors, like, and we do know that the three Advent children things from the future that you fight at the end of, Croceo, Rubrum, and Viridae, we know that those are, like, literally manifestations, to protect a future that gave shape to them. So we know that there's some kind of weird timeline shenanigan stuff, but we know that's now gone. We know there's nothing in the way anymore. And however it goes, it's going. And there's nothing that's going to bring it back. And so, like, all it feels like they're doing is leaning into that, but, maybe not. Maybe they find a way to bring it back. Maybe everybody lives, I could be wrong. But I think they've made a really solid choice in telling the story they want to tell.
Yes.
I just had a thought.
Uh-oh. I love giving Ray thoughts.
based on what you said.
Yo.
Something the way you said, about the way you were talking about the stamp bag.
Mm-hmm.
And for some reason, the way you said it just set off something in my brain. Okay, so we know that this is a fresh theory here too. This is the first time I've thought of this.
All right. Let's hear
Ooh,
it.
I love it. This is it.
What if when they're in that temporal space,
Mm-hmm.
right, whatever it is, whatever we call it, it is not Gaia where they're at. We can all agree on
Mm-hmm.
that. While they're in that temporal space, that is the point where the time change happens. That is the point at which, so the planet starts saving Zack before they go in, but Zack is saved while they are in there, right? And then, boom, everything's gone. Zack survives. What if? Because I've said before, Remake borrows a lot from the Matrix. It does, and like how it characterizes theory, like ideas and villains of ideas of self and reality and all that kind of stuff. Like especially Sephiroth and Agent Smith, their dialogue could be almost interchangeable, you know? So what if reality is rewritten when Zack is saved? Like it is all one timeline, but the reality itself, while they're in that temporal space, is rewritten. So you wouldn't see anything in Yuffie's timeline because that's actually happening while the
Before.
game's
Yeah, that happens before the rewrite. Exactly.
You wouldn't see a bag. You'd see like a Beagle bag, or you'd see like a Beagle spray painting, which, you know, there is stuff out there. That is happening before this temporal shift.
Right. That's correct.
What if the collision, the new Big Bang or whatever happens while they're in that temporal portal? That gives more credence to Aerith telling the audience, like, I miss it, the steel sky. The steel sky is kind of like the whole concept of safety. And she even says again when it's raining, she's like, you know, I forget what she said, was like, I miss having a roof over the rain or something like that. You know what I mean? The rain not hit me in the head. What if everything smashes together and changes while they're in there, and then when it's kaput and they're back on the freeway, the world is different?
Yeah.
So a lot of the same, but now instead of seeing a Beagle for Stamp, and we'll know in part 2. We'll know in part 2. Yeah. Instead, if Cloud and them don't see a Beagle and they see a Terrier for Stamp,
we'll know.
That's what happened.
That's exactly what. Yeah, that's how we know. And they could have shown that. They could have shown that basically Cloud, Aerith, Barrett, Red 13, and Tifa all got isekai'd into the Terrier timeline, but they didn't. They didn't show that because that's for part 2.
But what I'm saying is, like, it's not even like 2 different timelines. It's
it's just the past got changed.
The planet had to change reality.
Right.
So some little things will change and some big things will change. One of the things that changed is the branding of Stamp. He's now a Terrier.
Right.
Like all these little like butterfly effect things that have happened.
Now, and I want you to, and so we went way deep on this in the last stream. So think about that. So think about how far back would whatever little change, maybe it's just a single change that sets the butterfly in motion. How far back would that have to go to change the branding of Stamp? Think about that.
Yeah, yeah. And so Fort Condor could be there now. Godo may not be in prison. I mean, it could change a lot of things, like Yuffie. Think of Yuffie going back to Wutai and not knowing Wutai. Like there's still
her dad's there and like sad and fat.
Yeah. I mean, she's like, what the hell's going on? What happened? You know?
Yeah.
Oh man, I gotta stop thinking.
That's great.
Never stop thinking.
My brain's starting to burn. I don't want to ramble, but it's something to think about for me now.
It does solve. It does like it kind of solves some of the problems. Like, why are there 2 Buster Swords? Is Aerith is like, because you know, like a popular theory is that is that in the timeline that Zack walks into the church Aerith is dead, and that's why people are sad and mourning and stuff like that. I didn't get that tone from it, but you certainly could. And the explanation for her being dead is that she died. The Whispers were not there to save her on the highway, and she got exploded because Cloud was reckless with destroying that helicopter, and he was trying to show off for two ladies and Red 13, because we know how much he wants his approval, and no father figure, etc. And so Barrett, got stabbed and then got, whispered back into life. So, I mean, there's like a definite coherence to that possibility. And, and so if we kind of know right off the bat, if we get to Calm and we're like, hey, you guys want some stamps, champs? And it's a terrier bag. It's kind of over. The other possibility though is that it's the Beagle timeline, and Zach from the Terrier timeline has been pulled into that, and because we know that Zach is in the Terrier timeline, or if you don't want to call it timeline, I understand, but that's a loaded word. It's total loaded word. We know that the singularity explodes after we see the Terrier bag. Okay, so it doesn't explode before. So it's not exploding before we see, and we don't see that bag change mysteriously. We know that whatever place he is in, he sees a Terrier bag. Now, it's possible, too, that this is some kind of bizarre, de novo illusion. It's really clear in the Intermission DLC, if you go through and you watch the... and this is another thing to bring up. If you watch the Stamp storyboard scene, the story basically goes that Stamp is given orders, and his orders are to essentially go get her loaf of bread. And he sees a Moogle in need, and he has this, moral dilemma, and he chooses to help the Moogle in need, and then essentially he's told by his commanding officer that he made the right choice. He was rewarded for doing the right thing. And the Moogle in this is obviously sort of a representation of Yuffie, because she's in a Moogle outfit. So who's the Beagle representing? Well, probably Cloud, right? So, I mean, you could make an argument that these are just sort of figurative representations of the two characters. And so it might not be as direct or serious as this is universe 616, this might not be, DC multiverse level. So, but it could be something more figurative. Either way, if they just show a stamp bag and then move on, there will be people on the internet that'll get their brains broken over it. But they don't have to spend a lot of time on it. They just need to show it, and then okay, this is what we're doing. Move forward with character stuff, and I think we're fine at that point.
Yeah, the strength of moving this forward is going to be the characters and the writing. No matter what they do, it's going to be characters and writing. So at the end of the day, the thing I'm most concerned with, and Phil, you said this too, characters and the writing. That's what's going to carry this thing to the finish line, no matter what they decide to do with it. I'm not a big fan of the time travel thing, but if the story is good and the characters are good and the writing is good, then it will be fine, because it's still these characters. The reason that we're coming back to this game is because of these characters, so that's what's going to carry it over the finish line.
Yeah. I think speaking of the characterizations and stuff, one issue I can think of if Zach runs into the party, say part 2, part 3, whatever, is that both from a gameplay and a writing perspective, it's Zach is the larger than life hero. He's the it's this kind of Greek idea that's also borrowed in Tolkien and stuff, and a lot of mythology. It's we'll never be as great as our fathers. Right, so Zach is that he's the hero that Cloud will never be. Could be. So he's more simple in that way, Zach, like as a function in the story. Like if he does do that from a gameplay perspective, you can't have two people using the Buster Sword in the same exact way. It'd be kind of boring and stale, right? Secondly, his function as a character, I just don't know what he could possibly do. So I think it's more likely that they're not going to run to each other for like really at all during the gameplay, like maybe just once, like for a pivotal scene or something, or something of that nature. Because I do think it's going to be challenging just from a writing perspective. Because Zach, he's the he is a soldier first class. Actually, he's not some like failed. Cloud has his own weird inherent power that we see come out later in the story and stuff. But like Zach is this kind of like mythical hero. He's just like really powerful and really pure. He has no flaws. Zach, he's like a perfect character, which is not interesting from a writing perspective, right? This is why probably Crisis Core suffered a bit. But yeah, I think they would have a bit of a challenge there. So I'm curious how they implement it. If he's going to be totally separate or not, or just like I said, eventually come into the story. Very interested when that happens. Like you said, it would also break Cloud's mind completely and probably disturb Aerith a whole lot too, unless she has a hand in it. So there's so many possibilities.
I want to read something Nice Guy Prince wrote, and he said, from a storytelling perspective, there only being one Stamp now who has changed appearance to a terrier sets up a way better mystery than the characters being ignorant to the timelines then suddenly becoming aware later. And I think that's an excellent point, because we are getting an indication that Aerith has either lost her prescience somehow, or she's just less in tune with whatever's happening. She gets these little hints and she gets these feelings and stuff like that, but she's no longer driving the story with this like almost deific future sight, and so she's not going to be the one informing the party as much that things are amiss. So like setting up these little things that aren't right, are going to help build the mystery for the party and allow the party to become aware of what's happening. And I think that's a really good point. And the other thing, Sector 6 actually, he brings up a problem, and this is a big problem with either of these, and it's that
they already walk past each other. Yeah.
If Zach or the party being pulled into one another's timeline, why didn't they cross paths at the end of Remake? Would they still be in different times, even though they were pulled in by the singularity? And unfortunately, they might never explain that or even try. Like, and then you'll hear in like a developer interview, like 4 years after, oh no, the scene where they walk past each other was more symbolic, but they did actually get pulled in and stuff like that. And I forgot to bring this up, and I think I feel like Ray was about to say this, and then the mic cut him off. Is that the
whispers cut him off? Man.
The whispers cut him off. Is that there is an indication too that they're the gold there's a struggle that can be seen in the air during Zach's last stand in Remake, and it matches the color scheming of the battle between the yellow and the purple. So it's not just the same color as the spell that Aerith casts on the singularity. It's the same particle effects. It's the same, like if you pull the assets, they reuse those assets only there. So it's very clear that either it was the planet or Aerith directly that has caused whatever has Zach where Zach is, wherever that is. And that was a really good point. I felt like you got robbed by the whispers. They didn't want you to drop that.
It was Vice because he's being such a dickhead.
Yeah,
it's just what he does. But yeah, like the color schemes throughout, and we talked about with Nero, the black with the purple and everything, that represents Genova. That's the presence of Genova from the opening when you see Aerith praying by the pipe, and the end of the alley. It's like got that purple shine. It's got the music. The separate one-winged angel bleeds in, and she looks that way and she goes the other way. Like, and then the planet is yellow and green, those colors. So yeah, when you see that there at the end, and whenever the planet, I feel like the planet's trying to communicate with Cloud to warn him for something, that green happens, you know? I
Right.
don't feel like that's his experimenting, messing with him. I think, do you all want to hear my theory on Cloud real quick?
Yeah,
Yeah.
of course.
So this gonna be real quick. Hojo made a point to tell Aerith, we collected every cell of your mother, every cell, every piece, everything,
Yep.
which would have been before Cloud was experimented on. I think Cloud has Cetra and Fauna cells in him. I think he was injected with everything Hojo's got.
Damn.
So otherwise, you know, the game, the story breaks down things for you. It presents things for you for your brain to chew on, you know? They do that for a reason. They want you to think. So if I were writing a story and I put that in there, I'm putting that in there for a reason, you know? Because Hojo,
Yeah.
he looks at Cloud and Zack like these great little puppets to play with. Oh, these guys were just throwaway. I can do whatever I want to with them. I think Cloud's got a ton of stuff running through his body. I think he's got like Fauna cells. He's got Genova cells. I think he's got a lot of different stuff coursing throughout his body, and that's just my rough theory. So the planet would be able to talk to him in a way that it could talk to Aerith, but it's going to be weird. It's going to be painful. It's going to be unnatural. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So every time that little green, and the screen has like a green tone over it. That's the color of the planet. You know what I mean? That's the color of the planet. So, and at the end, remember, the most powerful scene for me in the entire game, and I mentioned this before, was at the end of it when Cloud is in his mind and the planet's trying to warn him again. He's reaching up to touch his head because we're conditioned as the viewer every time that happens. Sephiroth grabs his arm and he says, "Careful now." You know, that moment is when Sephiroth became more powerful than the planet. He actually physically kept the planet from communicating with Cloud in his mind.
Yeah.
And then all bets were off. So the yellow and the green and the purple and all that kind of stuff, the colors make a huge, huge difference in this game.
You know what's crazy, Ray? What's crazy is that so somebody posted a link in chat, and it clicked it as soon as they clicked it, and the exact same moment that you said "careful now," Sephiroth said "careful now" in the video. So I'm pretty sure whatever you're about to say next is going to be true. So no pressure.
Now I lost my train of thought. What was I even talking about? Oh yeah,
careful now.
Well, the whole Cloud thing and Sephiroth being that whole battle being in his mind. Remember, at the end of Final Fantasy VII, Cloud wins that battle.
Right
now, he hasn't, and Sephiroth tells him, he's like, you know, what lies ahead does not exist, but our planet's going to become a part of it one day. But I'm not, and you're not. You know, so there's this whole weird Big Brother thing Sephiroth's got, and I loved it. Every time Sephiroth came and he said, "Don't you want to be stronger?" You know, basically I can be strong. I want to see you get stronger, Cloud. I love that because in the original Final Fantasy VII, Sephiroth just appeared to him like a Reaper all the time.
Right.
Yeah.
Gloom, doom, you can't save nobody and everything. And now he's like, I want to see you get stronger. You know, he's coming to him differently. So this all feeds into the whole thing I just came up with. So the soundtrack too has clues. Like the titles of the songs in the soundtrack has a lot of clues to what's going on. So when you go into that realm, you've got Arbiter of Fate, Advent, Arbiter of, that's the whole lean into Advent children.
Yeah.
And then the Arbiter of Fate, Rebirth, the Arbiter of Fate, Singularity. I find it funny that Rebirth is before Singularity. Like Rebirth is almost like saying whatever's happening to the planet is happening right then. And if you think about when Zack is being saved, it's probably happening at that point. So, and then Singularity would be everything crashing together. That would be the Singularity. So I feel like it's not like with the presence of the yellow and the purple and the green and that going on with Zack at that time, I feel like what's happening isn't like a clear-cut time change, transport here, transported there. I feel like there's this weird gray area, like it's gradienting. like it's fusing into one thing. Like a little bit of this is changing, a little bit of this is changing, and then everything's kind of gradienting into like bleeding into. So like for the planet to go back and change Zach surviving, it changes the existence. I don't feel like it makes a new existence. And I feel like if there's one existence, then things have to change drastically. The viewer, the player, we don't see it because everything's inside of the singularity when everything's being the rebirth, being reborn or whatever. And when they come out of the singularity, they don't know anything's different. So, and then they're going to see, we are going to see in part two whether this has any credence or not when we start seeing like little changes and hearing about little changes because they tell a lot of the story of the game through chatter that you hear, through chatter and through things you hear on the street.
Yeah, that's true.
So we're going to hear a lot of that. And they're going to be saying a lot of stuff like, you know, it could be something to do with Shinra. It could be something to do with Rufus. It could be something to do with Wutai. It could be something to do with little things we've heard.
Man, I didn't even think about that. That'll be so cool, like wandering through Calm and hearing the little whispers. Yeah,
we're gonna have to listen because, like, you know, like I loved like when after the Sector 7 plate falls and you talk to those two troops who were guarding the door the whole time, or guarding the gate, and he was like, "Look, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm fighting for the people. This is wrong what we're doing." You know, I mean, there's little things like that. I loved hearing that. So I think that's going to be how they deliver a lot of what's going on early in the game, and we're going to have to be listening to it. So
that's pretty
but yeah,
cool.
Cloud, he's going to go crazy when he sees Zach. If Aerith doesn't die, and that's what breaks Cloud, I think seeing Zach is going to be what breaks Cloud. Because
oh yeah, I see what you're saying.
What's going on? Cloud thinks Zach's dead. He was in the singularity when everything was reborn, and whatever happened with them happened. However, time had to be rewritten or whatever. If you're following me,
I am.
But like when he sees Zach, it's going to be a mental fracture because Final Fantasy VII is all about messing with like how the mind works, how dreams work. Like when Sephiroth was trying to keep Cloud from meeting Aerith. And then the Whispers kept her there so that they could meet. That's why the Whispers were messing with her, directly with her, to keep her in that place because she was turning to go home. She was getting ready to go home. And then they were keeping her there. And then she runs up to Cloud. She's like, "Help me." And that's how they finally meet. But before that happens, Cloud or Sephiroth stops Cloud's mind again, which happens like this, right? That's how the brain works. But he's in Cloud's head. So he puts his hand on Aerith's shoulder. He walks by. He's like, "You can't save anybody." He's trying to get in his head one last time before he meets Aerith because he doesn't want them meeting.
Yeah.
But then once the damage is done, he keeps coming to Cloud. He keeps messing with Cloud's head. So, Phil, what you were saying, do you prefer Philip or Phil? I meant to ask.
Either one. Yeah, it's all good.
You were talking about how Cloud and Zach shouldn't work the same. You're absolutely right. They shouldn't work the same. So I feel like when Cloud is in the live stream and before you find him in Gongaga, I did like a whole theory video on this. I think Zach steps into that role that Cloud has in the party. I think he's going to be stronger because it's his moves that Cloud has.
Yeah.
Those are all Zach's moves that he has. I think when Cloud comes out of the live stream, he needs to have that full connection to the planet. I think he'll be able to commune a little bit easier with the planet because right now it's painful for him because it's unnatural. He's going to be reborn in some kind of way. When he comes out, he needs to be totally different. Totally new moveset, totally way he holds the sword. He needs to be different when he comes out. He needs to be a big dork, you know, character-wise, because he was always uncertain and kind of dorky and not popular. He needs to not be Diet Coke version of Zach. He needs to be straight up dorky Cloud, cracking bad jokes, let's mosey. He needs to be that guy. And he needs a different move set. Like, I think he should be his own guy when he comes out. I think what's going to break Cloud this time is going to be Zach. Because I think Aerith will still be alive at that point. Because they're putting so much work into Aerith. I think they'll take her away at some point. But I would hate to be robbed of some of, like you said earlier, the dialogue we could get with her and so many of the other characters, you know. But it'll be interesting to see. Yeah, my brain is working overtime now. Like I have to shut myself up a little bit because I tend to ramble. But yeah, like my
but
brain's
that's why
working
we pay you the
overtime.
big bucks, though, Ray.
I see like 4 or 5 videos coming now. I gotta start writing this stuff down.
We got to get you on here more often, though.
But yeah, man, like something about the way you said the thing about the stamp bag. I was like, oh, wait a minute. What if it's like not 2 different realities, but rewriting reality? Because Zach wasn't included in it. So the planet had to stitch together a new reality.
Right.
Had to write, like, you know, the show's going on the air in 30 minutes. We got to rewrite the whole show.
But
like,
because Cloud and Co. were in the singularity, they're immune to that.
They have no idea.
Yeah.
So their memories and stuff aren't changed. So when Rebirth is happening in the soundtrack, I think that is the moment when Zach is being saved. And then Singularity is when everything is being smashed.
That's cool. I like that.
I never thought of Rebirth like that.
Zach's rebirth, or
I've always thought about it in terms of Sephiroth.
I did too, but he's got his own track, One Winged Angel Rebirth.
Yeah, he does.
Yeah.
He's got his own.
So something to consider.
I was looking at the soundtrack, and something about the way you said that.
Yeah.
Clicked something in my brain. I was like, wait a minute. All right, cool.
Nice.
All right, that's all I got for right
now. Good job too. Is that people are saying it in chat is like, it really would appear, at least in my mind, that Sephiroth is in complete control.
Yeah,
he is just showing you how weak you are at the end of part 1, which I love. And then when you see the flashbacks and be like, who is this guy? For new people anyway, right? But he's like so in control. So again, unless they're gonna really play up, like you guys said, it's Aerith's chess counter to Sephiroth's whatever he's doing with the singularity to bring Zach back or whatever, do something with Zach, put him back into play. It's like he's so in control. I almost wonder if he is the one that decided Zach needs to come back, so for whatever reason. So it's just very interesting, and there's so many different ways that could go with this. Even with the theories we just mentioned, there's so many different ones, right? So it's fascinating how Sephiroth's going to play into it, considering he seems to be as powerful, if not more powerful, than Aerith now. Considering he has the tools of the planet and Genova and his own insane power and stuff. So I can't wait to see what they do, and I do hope whatever it is, they play up this interaction between Sephiroth and Aerith, which we did see, as we mentioned, the mocap actors doing something.
And you know what I like about that is that you can tell that what they've done a lot is sort of revisit concepts that like kind of either hit the cutting room floor, and some of them like last minute, like particularly with summons being like essentially kind of the same thing as Soldier, just but for ancients. Like there's something that Sephiroth tells the party that's was cut like last minute, and you can see like elements of that in the assessments and like the chapter slides. And I don't miss the chapter slides, even though they had great information. But now that there's no loading screens, but like there was a bunch of little concepts like that were in early development, but kind of couldn't come to fruition. And Aerith and Sephiroth were at one point during the development brother and sister. And there was also a lovers thing. Yeah, there was, it's
kind of cool how like Zach and Sephiroth actually were kind of the same person originally, and now it's like it's changed. It's very interesting, food for thought, right?
The very interesting changes, and the Turtle Paradise thing is actually sort of a reference to Yuffie's original kind of design as she was actually going to be like 23 and another member of Soldier. That the posters that you picked up determined her stats and starting abilities and almost job class. And so the Turtle Paradise thing was kind of a nod to that. And there's a bunch of sort of interesting, nods to these concepts that I think indicate how much they care about what they were creating, how much it all, how deep the lore runs, and how how respectful they are of these old ideas, and something it seemed really clear, and we've mentioned a couple times already, is that they didn't have enough time to tell a story between literally the last Cetra and Cetra's mortal enemy, Genova. Like, we just get this bizarre, like, out of nowhere, Genova appears in the form of Sephiroth and kills Aerith. Like, and we get some vague context for it after. But there was all this potential for, like, an explanation between this, like, age-old conflict, what it represents with the planet, and what it means moving forward. And there's all this religious symbology and geopolitical symbology with that, like, because, obviously Sephiroth and Genova, they had this iconography associated with Western religion, and everybody else had this characterization, like, of religions of old, or things that we now consider mythology, and this idea of appropriation was built into all of that, and they never got a chance to explore that, or you had to explore that real deep after the fact. And I would love to see that done in a tasteful way. Do I want to see, now to be clear, do I want to see Aerith holding a katana and fighting 1-for-1 against Sephiroth, like Yoda style? Absolutely not.
No.
There are a few things that would make me revolt completely, and that's one of them.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
That's what I love about the original, is that Sephiroth is he's such a physical power, like, again, being the strongest warrior, having his arms, his armaments, his powers, that he can overpower people, mind control and stuff. But then he defeats himself. By destroying Aerith, he undoes himself the moment she's dead. Her entering the life stream, he's destroyed himself with his power. So
Right.
it's such a cool concept, again, that I hope they
So,
explore it so much.
Yeah, and I mean, like, and that seems like it's under threat now, right? Because what is the state of the live stream right now? I mean, if that's what we're really fighting, is the whispers and negative live stream, and if that's that's the stuff that's corrupted the live stream, will there be enough of that to stop the calamity from happening this time around? It's really clear that they've set up these stakes to be higher.
Yeah, it's very interesting, because they clearly want to. It would seem like the whole reason this remake exists is to tie up the story.
Yeah.
Right. Both to revise it completely and make it better, but also to with no limitations of technology, but also to tie it up. You have to ask yourself, it's like, okay, if we get that amazing scene, which is Aerith coming out with the live stream and destroying him with, like, again, this natural chthonic way, not with force, not with might, not by power, taken forcefully from someone else, just natural way of doing it. Like, what happens after that? Right? How does it end? And they could do it as simple as that happens, and then we get the final, like, comeuppance of Edge of Creation, Sephiroth, whatever it is, Zack, and everything coming to a head, or it's longer, or that doesn't even happen at all. There's a different thing. I would love to see it, but I'm not so much of a purist. I would say that I just want to see the stuff. Like, I guess what I'm saying is that the table they've set in front of me, the meal they've set out in front of us, is too succulent and too passionate in the way they're doing it for me just to be like, I need to see the original. Don't care about anything. And again, just as I said earlier, the planning, guys, the fact that we can pick this stuff apart and it is consistently leading towards something should be evidence enough to us that it's so well planned. This is, there's a reason it took, what was it, 10 years since Advent Children? More than that.
Oh,
what,
yeah,
15?
it's like Advent Children was about 15 years ago or so.
Yeah, 15, 16 years. Like, this is why it took so long. They were probably like, we need to conclude this in the right way. Let's, do this master plan, because Nomura has been saying since back then, I think around the Dirge of Cerberus time, that there is a final piece of the compilation coming to end it, and it's this. I really think this is it. So it's so cool what they're doing. But anyways, I would love to see that.
Yeah.
That opposing forces, Aerith and Sephiroth, a lot more played with.
Right, and also that's really Final Fantasy. To have like a representation of cosmos and chaos, and and that was never Cloud. That was never Zack. Like, neither of those characters were the representation of Cosmos. And but it was pretty clear that that Sephiroth was the representation of chaos. So okay, so we're rounding the corner, guys, and I did just put this in chat. So if you guys have some questions, feel free to start asking them now. And I did mention that highlights and/or subs are help with visibility. And so already we've as soon as I wrote that, about 20 questions came in. So let's look here. First, Ars Omnia, one of my mods here, asked a question. Alex Big Boy, thank you for the follow. Question: now that we've learned more about Wutai, when the five mighty gods enter the story, do you three believe that they'll be Godo's loyal allies or his provisional government jailers? Oh, that's a good question. So, for context for the audience, when you enter Wutai and you face Godo, as part of the quest to get ultimate the final limit break for Yuffie, or the ultimate weapon. I think the final limit break. Sorry, one or the other. You have to go up the pagoda, and there's five like officers of Godo's house, his loyal allies. And so now that we see that maybe things are a little different, could they possibly be his provisional government jailers? My money would be on they'd be in jail with him. But that's a really good question, Ars.
I would love for it to be like, again, referencing the Iliad. I would love for them to be like kind of the heroes of Troy, to use that same analogy.
Nice.
Or like maybe they're like the Sarpedon and the Glaucus, the Cassandra of that, where you have these people who are like they've seen Sephiroth on the field, and they could like mention that how he was a terror on the battlefield or something. That would be really cool, because they would be like the strong warriors of Wutai who fought in the war.
100%, yeah.
I would like to see that play out like a Seven Samurai kind of thing, because it's in Wutai. Like Godo is like Kanbei Shimada, and then you've got like he gets out of jail or whatever. He's like, all right, I got to find these other four. And, he goes and finds Shiroji, Kyuzo, and and they're all kind of like different versions of down on their luck after the war. Like they're either drunk or they're gamblers, or like or they have to come back together or whatever. I would like to.
That would be cool.
I would like to see. I'm a big Kurosawa fan, so I think that would fit really well there.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Hell yeah, that's a great question, Ars Omnia. Okay, YOLO Alchemist. More I thought about Yuffie in Remake compared to OG, more I realized, and it was even confessed by the devs, she was simply missing story content in the OG. That's true. Remake made to be similar to the other party members in that she also has two layers to her character, an exterior and an interior. My question is, since Vincent was also optional in OG due to his content being cut, what do you think his characterization will be like in Remake? Will it also follow the same pattern? Awesome question. I'm going to say something. I'm going to say something that can possibly upset people. I thought Vincent's character was terrible in FF7 and even in Dirge Cerberus. I think he's just a very flat character. I like his design. I like everything about the way he looks. I like his limit breaks. Characterization, he was like an opaque joke. And
non-existent.
And I really think they got to hit Vincent out of the park. And I think a good way to do it is, like you said, exterior and interior. But they really got to layer that interior. They got to make that interior interesting. Not tropey, not emo, not like interesting. And we also got to figure out what's going on with Hojo that he can just outgame Vincent. And I think we're going to find the answer to that at Costa del Sol in the Speedo scene. Okay, go on, guys.
Yeah, no. First of all, shout out to YOLO, one of my big viewers on my channel too. Great to see you, buddy. It's awesome question, and I think the way they do it is they probably play up his past with the Turks, which I remember them doing somewhat in Dirge, but I've forgotten a lot of it. I don't remember it being particularly engaging.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of it was just kind of Hojo messing with him and stuff. I think they really play up. It's such a cool concept. It's called a Turk,
Yeah.
who's kind of turned to our side. So they really need to play that up in the way that, like, you know, the Turks that we know now are antagonistic and stuff. Like, I think they should make Vincent not so much of a good guy. Like, they're so good with characterization now. They probably make his personality a little bit more on the side of maybe like Reno and Rude, who are just like, you know, casually murder 50,000 people, dropping the plate on him, like kind of shrug it off. A little guilty, but yeah, whatever. It's the job. Like, Jesus. So I think they probably make him a little bit more like that. He shouldn't just kind of be like, okay, guys, let's save the world, kind of like he was in Dirge or whatever, even though he's slightly disinterested about it, right? I think they maybe play up his darker side, and I don't mean in like an emo way. Just probably not that good of a guy. If he was a Turk, like pretty much mafia, you know, mafioso hitman type guy, that would be really cool to see. Again, talking about my idea of like the party at a campsite and everything. Picture the side quest of trying to like break the shell of Vincent just to chat with him. It'd be like so disinterested and so not social. So I think that'd be cool to see personally.
Totally. 100%.
I think Vincent's very interesting because he's. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No. I actually was very excited for your take on this.
Well, Vincent I always liked because not because he was necessarily so well fleshed out or anything, but
Yeah.
you know, like I say all the time, my thing is concept and execution, separating the two and figuring out, you know, what is great and what is not. So the concept of Vincent is excellent, you know, especially for like an optional character.
Yeah.
His execution wasn't because there's so much you could let him chew on in Final Fantasy VII. He has a direct tie to the underbelly of Shinra, and they didn't do anything more with him, you know.
Right.
There's a great anime called Gungrave, and it centers around. It kind of has this Frankenstein theme to it, almost like Brandon Heat is an ex hitman kind of guy, but with a heart of gold. He's in it to protect the right people and stuff. Some bad stuff happens, and something he feels responsible for. He dies. He comes back. Anyway, I think Vincent would travel along that same kind of story in like this grandiose way. We know what's going on with Vincent. He feels responsible for letting Sephiroth be born and letting the woman he loved get away. Because there were times in Dirge of Cerberus where there was one scene in particular. It's been a while since I played it, but where he's a Turk, he's talking to Lucretia, and Hojo's in the room, and he's like, "You're going to go through with this experiment?" And she says in a way, she says, "Yeah, well, basically, like, what do you want me to do?" You know, and he doesn't say, "Hey, I love you. Don't do it. You're mine. I'm taking. You're my, you know, mate, and I'm yours. You know, we belong to each other." He never does that. So I feel like if you play up this whole tragic, romantic kind of thing with Vincent, and the fact that he does kind of have a hand in the creation of Sephiroth, which what bigger stakes are there than that? You know what I mean? There's a lot to chew on. I think you got to cast the right voice actor for him, which they've proven they're killing that. I mean, there's knocking the casting out of the park on the game. Right voice actor, you got to write him properly.
I think the right voice actor is in this conversation right now.
Hey, Phillip, I think you can give us a fuck you, Hojo. Hojo. But yeah, I think you've got to he has to have gravitas to him, you know, because he has a direct tie to Shinra, and you have to exploit that. You have to play that up. I think if you don't, it's going to be fun to play as him, but it's going to feel like a miss.
I like what you say, but I think they need to play up his guilt, and I don't mean again like an emo kind of like depressed way. I really want to see them bring, and they're already doing it. This is why I think it's possible. More like psychology into it. As far as the characters go, like we're seeing, even the end of Yuffie and stuff with Cloud, Tifa. Like again, I talk about all the time. Just the quiet scenes between Cloud, Tifa, Aerith. That's the best scenes for me by far in the remake. Like they are just nailing these subtle conversations, these subtle interactions, awkward silences, and everything. I'd love to see Vincent like kind of really not like, I don't even know what the word is, not like anxiety, not depression, but really be like just riddled with guilt and like again, not an emo way. I'd have to do it very carefully.
Well, and if they do it, I mean, like if that's his characterization, I mean, they can still have that. Like that's fine, but that just needs to be like his actual characterization. Like because he doesn't technically have a characterization.
No, he has nothing. Yeah.
He's
like a cardboard box. Yeah,
he's an honorable guy who's ashamed of himself. He's like a dishonored samurai in a way, and he's literally hiding from it.
Yeah,
he's hiding from everybody he knows and everything he knew in the entire world and himself, and he's hiding from it. Like he doesn't want to face it.
I think I see them maybe altering that slightly. Not that he won't be in that base. Like it's just strange. It's like, I don't care about anything. I'm just gonna chill. It's like you would think somebody who was literally a hitman type guy would be like John Wick on this shit. Like, oh, Hojo's dead. Like, I'm gonna kill every son of a bitch on this side of the Mississippi. I'll take Shinra with me. Like, it's just weird that he did that. Again, I'm forgetting probably some details from like the Dirge rewrite, but I think they can do better with his reasons from his reasons for being there and just kind of chilling and then being like, nah, I'm gonna sleep forever. Again, if acted well, it could be great.
And
I think that's the character arc. I think you get him there. I think that's the fun of Cloud and company, and even Aerith. I mean, different people can have a hand in that. I think you tie in. There's going to be a Yuffie connection because I think that's kind of something they've played with in the compilation. But I think that's the character arc. I think you take him from like just wanting to die, but he's basically not able to die.
Right.
You know what I mean?
He's absurdly powerful.
That would be cool.
He can't die because of chaos in him. And the character arc is getting him back to being a badass who kicks down Hojo's door and takes no prisoners.
That would be sweet. Yeah, I hope they play that up too. Like maybe he just gave up because he couldn't die and just wanted to not exist anymore. That would be a cool spin right there. Yeah.
We know how shame and guilt work. It eats you alive. No matter how strong you are, it eats you alive. Depression is a killer. And I think that's what Vincent has going. It's completely debilitating. I think if you play that up with him, you can pull that.
Totally. I had you just because you love Castlevania, you'll appreciate this. I had a revelation, not just because my chat is always hashtag Phil for Vincent, half joke, half amazing support, but Alucard from Castlevania Netflix series.
Yes, absolutely.
I had a revelation watching the recent series that, oh my god, he's a depressed guy who wants to go away in a coffin and literally does for hundreds of years in the coming season. Because he doesn't belong in the world. He thinks he's like a stain on the world. He's ashamed of himself. And the way that I think it's James Callis plays him, delivers that is just this very quiet kind of like self-hatred and self-disgust. But it doesn't come off as this kind of like early 2000s emo. It comes off as this very
sincere and like very tender.
Very tender, very sensitive, very poetic. It's not like everything. It's not that level of like, okay, that's too much. It's very well done. So I would love to see that spin on him, and I think that's the sweet spot.
Yeah, I think that's how you pull it off.
That's exactly how you pull it off. That is such a good point. Alucard, that's perfect. Some tenderness to his character would really add a layer. And I mean, something I always thought they missed the mark on, especially since Dirge came out after Advent Children, is that we find out unfortunately through the compilation and not directly through Advent Children when they could have told us that geostigma affects specifically people who have been afflicted by, who've come in contact with, the live stream and negative live stream, etc. But also it affects people that feel despair and something that Vincent feels probably more than anybody is this despair, but because of his makeup and chaos and all that stuff, he is absolutely, it's like inconsequential to him. So he's watching all these people fall to despair, and he can't even get the release of that, and they had this opportunity to kind of build that up, and it's actually even something that is mentioned in a vague way in On the Way to a Smile episode Red 13 episode Naki. And when I came across it, I'm like, this would have been so cool in a game that like the general populace could have seen. And so I hope that they lean into that really hard. That's a great question. And I can't think of two better people to have answered it than you guys.
Can you imagine a scene in Remake Part 2 or whatever Vincent's... I'll let us move along, but like a scene, like a flashback, Vincent kind of in his own head thinking about the past, like him trying to off himself and not being able to, and then making the decision to get in the coffin in the Shinra Mansion or whatever. Yeah. Can you imagine how powerful that would be?
I just had a thought too. It's like maybe it's that he didn't crawl in there. Maybe he tried so many times and he just couldn't do it that he just like collapsed in like a heap of can't move anymore. And like that's where they find him. Just like depression so strong, he's just done. And they find him. Like, what are you doing here? He's like, I don't want to do anything anymore. Like that would be powerful too. So there's a lot of ways they play it, which, man, after the Sonon death, I wouldn't say that's out of the question. Like they're going to a place that's both very tastefully upsetting, I would say, but also, not gratuitous, disgusting stuff, but also could be quite poignant and not shying away from like mental health stuff, obviously with Cloud, and his whole story. So I would love to see it, especially if it has a good message, delivered at the end.
Absolutely. Okay.
People, dealing with that.
So, okay. Sly Memo asks, do we know how Nero's powers work? I'm still confused why Nero didn't just kill Yuffie once she made it to the other side of the door. From a narrative perspective, you could say he's sadistic, but are there other reasons? I think the sadism, I think you kind of nailed it. Like he found his plaything. I think he seemed to be characterized as somebody that thrived off of her living pain. From that situation, that in terms of that, how Nero's powers work. Now, Nero is ultra fascinating from a lore perspective. He's one of two characters that have those cat eyes. There's a bunch you could say about him. Like you can see Omega's hand come out of the void if you look at assets in Dirge of Cerberus. Like there is more to Nero than we see for sure. And also Nero's relationship with Vice, like it's more than brothers. They're like they're characterized as almost the same person, but just two halves. It's like it's more of a essential yin yang to their characterization. And what the mechanics of those are specifically are unfortunately locked behind Dirge of Cerberus lore, which is a convoluted nightmare.
Right.
So the answer to your question is, do we know how Nero's power work? No.
Yeah.
That's the answer.
Will we get a hard magic system explanation? Who knows, right? I think he's actually a masochist as well as a sadist, because he literally saying, like, it hurts so much, brother. But he also says, like, I need to feel more of this, like, fear, pain of dying, death rattle, insanity. Like, he's a crazy dude. So I think also Yuffie gave him a run for his money, though. Like, Yuffie and Sonon. I think he's more interested in maybe taking Sonon to use as a tool because he's interested in his strength. Like, people that are actually allowed to fight him. I think he also is heard saying in the fight, I just did it one time, he's saying something along the lines of like, he's not been in a fight like this for some time or even had any challenge. He's just like turning people into mush with his arms and his straight jacket. He's not doing any effort. So I think he's probably fascinated by Sonon, wants to use him. Also masochist. I do think though that they did give him some run for his money. He was defeated, and then he came back for after a second and got Sonon. So I don't know that he 100% let her go and was toying with them. He's probably fascinated by Sonon's strength. Because remember, these guys, like, Sonon is one of the strongest warriors of Wutai. Also, he's like a certified ninja trained under the leader of Wutai, her father. He's not some, like, chump soldier,
Yeah, he's baller.
Kind of Wutai's version of, like, a soldier or something like that. So,
yeah, exactly. Probably.
and I think there's a track called Pain Sensation Max on the soundtrack.
Right.
Yeah, and so it plays right into what you all were saying about him just getting off on the pain and everything. That's kind of what he does.
So Pain Sensation Max is actually for the VR simulator against the diabolic creation.
Right.
But yeah. But also, Scarlett says something about it. Oh, she's talking about the simulator. That's right. Yeah. Okay, yeah. She's talking about the simulator to go in. That's right.
And that is a whole thing that we could talk about for like 2 to 3 hours, but we're out. We got to get through the ending stuff. Yeah.
One thing I noticed about the Nero fight, he seemed to create a field.
Mm-hmm.
Like when you come out of the VR simulator, he seemed to have created a field.
Yes.
And I feel like, and I thought about this when Sonnen was like continuing to block the elevator, like that stuff was not in the elevator. I think he knew that Yuffie could get away if she got out of that.
Oh, that's a good point.
I feel like he created a field. He kept blocking the elevator so that she could get in there. He was hitting the button to go up, even though he was skewered. He was like hitting the button to go up. He was like, just close the doors, go. He's like trying to get her out of there, So I feel like that. I don't know exactly how his powers work. Like you said, it's a convoluted mess with Dirge of Cerberus, the experimentation. But I think that field may have had something to do with it. Because as he amps up the field when you're fighting, the darkness grows. He gets stronger through all the different stages of his fight.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it appears he like releases darkness that he's taking from these bodies. That's what I got from it. If we go just by remake, like kind of visual magic system, whatever, it seems he's like sucking the darkness out of people and then unleashing it. But I think what happens is he runs out of darkness. That's why they quote unquote defeat him. So then he gets sewn on to get some more, and then that's when Yuffie escapes like in that opportunity because he probably like drained his pool of darkness. So that's probably at least how the mechanics of his thing work. So I think at least visually it was like pretty well set up, even though it is completely unclear the limits of his powers. It like makes sense for that basics, right?
Yeah, definitely. And I think narratively it kind of ties it all up. Now,
totally.
Now to remember, like, it's unclear, like, do any of these characters have Genova cells in them? I guess technically not. Like, they have Genesis's cells in them, and Genesis himself doesn't have Genova cells, but it's like through Genova experimentation that they were created. And so like the amount of wide variety of powers that potentially are available to another planet's Omega weapon are so vast that you can really you can tell any power story you want and probably make it like work. So there are a lot of really, really good questions, and so we can rapid fire some of them. Will we see Sonnen again? I think for 5 seconds in a flashback or like as nostalgia related things. I don't think he's coming back in any meaningful way, except for maybe in like a mobile game later or something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would agree. Maybe something like a lot of people are saying Nero's going to use him against Yuffie. Maybe, but it depends on if Deep Ground's involved.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I could see him come back and like Nero trying to use him against Yuffie in some kind of nightmarish, hellish kind of way. But yeah, I don't think he's coming back to live. I think that would defeat the whole point of what happened there at the end of that story.
Yeah, totally.
Let's see. Riding hippos, watch Aerith in this scene after Sephiroth's defeat, and you can see her raise her arm like she does on the portal. She causes the explosion that causes the changes, in my opinion. I agree. I did see that. Let's see. Who do you think the new Wutai government is? Part of something Rufus did, or something that happened within the Wutai people? Yes. Yes to both. In my opinion.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah, I think it'll be something like, like what happens when regimes fall and new regimes pop back up or whatever, So new Wutai government, Yuffie's down with it. It's probably something to do with like the Wutaians like starting something new, and that could be where her father's in jail. He could be like considered a radical now or something like that, So
yeah, Do you believe? And I'm excited for. I've seen Ray's take on one of these characters, so I'm excited to hear him talk. Do you believe that Sid or Vincent will have a bigger impact in the remake? I do,
Yes.
obviously, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Sid or I mean, obviously Vincent has no impact in the original game, so yes. Like he literally does nothing. He's just like a cool secret.
Yeah, he's like maybe Sephiroth's father. Yeah.
Yeah, he's a fun new limit break. That's all he was in the original game. But yeah, I think he'll have a massive thing as far as like him being Sephiroth's father. Yes and no. Either way, he'll be more involved in all that.
Yeah.
And his function in the story could be a connection, like a direct connection to that, beyond like Cloud being experimented on and stuff, and Aerith being locked up by Hojo as a kid. Like I could see him providing info, giving that kind of connected stakes to it, having stakes in that personally. That would be really cool. Again, in a Dirge of Cerberus way, but one that makes more sense and is like grounded in the actual story, not like an afterthought, or a revision.
Yeah.
And I think Sid as well, man. We talked a lot about Sid at one point, but yeah, I think Sid is going to be really awesome. Again, he only has probably 3-4 scenes in the original where he does anything that is like real dialogue. It's only a few scenes where they're all together in one room. The original, it's super skeletal in that way, and it's like the haunted mansion, the airship before the final battle. There's a few of those, but they're very few and far between. So I mean, just beyond my campfire thing I keep mentioning, yeah, I think he's gonna have a lot to say.
Definitely.
I would like to see. I think I mentioned this with you before about Vincent. So I'll talk about Sid real quick first. I'll keep it quick, but like I want to see them explore Sid's mind, like his tactical mind, like as a pilot, like really go into his skills as like a really accomplished pilot and like not just a pilot but an engineering mind. Like can you upgrade the high wind? Like can Sid help little communities you come to like upgrade their tech or travel stuff? I mean, use Sid in like a meaningful way and not just a way to be like, okay, we can use the high wind now instead of this thing to go get the Knights of the Round material. Not something superficial like that, but something that aids to the story. Like Sid does something to help protect Midgar from one of the weapons. Like, okay, we can do this, everybody. Okay, team, break. Everybody's got your jobs, go do it. Every member of the team needs to feel important in that way. And I feel like in the original 7, that wasn't the case. After you do the deal with Dyne, Barrett pretty much has no role in the story after that.
Yeah, for sure.
So, but Vincent, I think Vincent is going to have an idea of what is going on with the world because of his connection with chaos.
That'd be awesome.
And that's a connection to the planet that you can explore. And plus, he's integral to the story because he is kind of responsible by way of his inactions for Sephiroth being created.
Yeah, that's right.
Sometimes the inability to act is worse than the actual action itself. And I think that's what Vincent represents. But I think he should have a connection to what is going on. I think he should have a connection. If they play the Genesis card, I think he could have a connection to Genesis as well in some way. So I'll leave it at that, though.
I love that.
Which brings us to our next question. So we've got 2 more questions, and then we're going to call it. If Sleep Easy is here, are you going live soon so we can raid you? Anyways, Melter1302 asks, will Genesis show up in the Nibelheim scene? And if so, is there any way it doesn't ruin it? My answer is no. I don't think Genesis will show up in that scene. And except for maybe like in a retelling or something like that in some kind of DLC, maybe. And the reason I don't think so is because there's no narrator that tells the story that we're following, unless Zack shows up really early in the game that would actually know that. Like,
yeah, exactly.
Like Genesis only appears to Sephiroth. So unless Sephiroth becomes the narrator, which, why would he do that?
Yeah.
How would it benefit him to do that? I don't see that being something that happens. If it does happen, is there any way for it to not ruin it? I don't know. It depends on how they characterize Genesis. Like Genesis may be badass in this. Like if they could make Weiss the Immaculate awesome, and he was ridiculous in Dirge of Cerberus.
Much more far fetched than Genesis. Yeah.
Yeah. Then
I agree.
Yeah.
Like I didn't think about that. It is unreliable narrator, right? It's Cloud telling you, so he doesn't know of his existence unless they totally shift perspective, and it's just no longer him telling it or something, which is makes no sense because the party has to know the story, right? Like probably not. I do think though, again, Genesis, I would love to see him included in, this sort of view of the Wutai War. Like I said, I would love to see Genesis, if we're still going to use my Iliad thing, be like a Diomedes or something, or a Phoenix, in the Greek camp, the Ajax, etc. Right? Like some other warrior that maybe we see him talking to Sephiroth. And that could be either supplemental to people who are fans of the compilation, or I think more likely like Genesis appears as a fun DLC boss in the way that Nero did in Vice, as like a cool way. But I don't know, man. Let's look back to Genesis' use and function in the end of Dirge of Cerberus. I don't know, man. I think he's probably gonna have some pretty big part to play at the end game. Because they planned something. He grabs Vice and flies away. Like I always thought to go find Sephiroth. Who knows? But we'll see.
It's weird because we don't really know whose side he's on. Other than the planets, but like
right. Yeah,
at a certain point, like is the planet our friend? Like and by us I mean like humans. Like it's starting to turn on us, it seems. So, yeah.
Yeah, I've done like a number of videos talking about Genesis at great peril to my comments section, I might add. But like, no, I think Genesis would not be present in, like you said, you nailed it. He wouldn't be present in the flashback scene that Cloud tells because Cloud has no idea who Genesis is. Even if he wasn't manipulated mentally by Hojo, he would not know who Genesis is because Genesis only appeared to Zack and Sephiroth in Nibelheim. Like when he was like, "You're a monster, I'm a monster," blah blah blah. You know what I mean? I think Genesis, he's at the end of Crisis Core, he's changed. Like, he's kind of envious of Zack because Zack is the hero that Genesis viewed himself to become, and he realizes at the end of it he could never be that guy because it's just not who he is. And like when Genesis is defeated and he's kind of turned away from the live stream or whatever, at the end of it, Genesis is not dead. He's not unconscious. He's just mentally dealing with trying to figure out who he is and what he's about now. Like when he's passed out by the chair next to Cloud and he gets the dumb apple and Zack does the salute thing, he's conscious right there. He's just like off in La La Land. You know what I mean? He's totally conscious there. So like, and the fact that he denies Nero and Vice in lore when they're like, "Hey, you want to lead our rebellion?" He's like, "Nah, I'm gonna take a nap." He closes himself off and he goes to sleep. He pulls a Vincent Valentine. I think when Genesis comes back, I just subterfuge like 30% of my channel by saying if.
You said when, yeah.
When he comes back, I think he'll be a sentinel of the planet of Minerva, that whole thing.
Yeah,
and I think if I were going to characterize him, it's the concept versus execution again. I've talked about this several times. Character. The concept is amazing. The concept of Genesis is absolutely amazing within that world.
Yeah.
The execution, not so much, because I'm kind of like poetic villains when they're done right can be good, like the beauty of battle and all that kind of thing. But it's kind of done to death now. You know what I mean? There's so much of it out there. I was kind of done with it in Gundam Wing with Treize Kushrenada and Zex Marquis. Way. I love that. That was villain at its height. Like after that, I was like, okay, I need less of that. I need more warlord in my villain and less poetry, basically. But I think if you bring Genesis back as like an Auron type character from Final Fantasy X, like you don't really know what angle he's playing. Like if he's watching the party and he tests them from like he battles them every now and then to test them, like you're not ready. You ain't ready for what's really going on. Genesis would know everything that's going on right now because he would essentially be a weapon. He would essentially be like a human weapon for the
I was gonna
planet.
say like a weapon of the planet. That'd be really cool.
So
To play.
yeah, so he would essentially be that. To characterize him as like an Orin type character, I think that would be dope as hell.
Okay.
Yes.
And wild card, like if Sephiroth is Lex Luthor, then Genesis is the Joker.
Okay. 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 All right. I'm gonna need to process all that before I say words.
Okay.
I love Minerva as a concept. And again, I have a lot of confidence in Remake's team to characterize these characters. But if we're gonna make them substantial, I don't think there is a character that would be a more impressive feat than Genesis. They would really have their work cut out for them. I definitely think we'll see Genesis again, but like for him to be like either an actual component of the endgame lore, like a component of what's actually happening in the ultimate struggle, or to him be like a character that like aggressively interacts with the party, they got their work cut out for them. I'm not saying they couldn't do it, but they definitely have their work cut out for them.
But I think the groundwork's there. I think the concept, the floor, the footer for the house is there. The bones of the house are strong. You just got to replace the kitchen and the living room and the
Gacked.
old furniture. I think. Well, yeah, the gaps there, with him, his look, or whatever. I think, but I think you can do it. I think enough great concept is there.
Okay.
A guy who literally go toe to toe with Sephiroth. I think the concept is there. I think they can pull it off.
The question is, would that take
Well, he
away?
could go toe to toe with this Sephiroth, not this version.
No, this
But it
Sephiroth, Sephiroth would clap his cheeks.
Yeah, now. Yeah.
Oh
Yeah, meteor powered Sephiroth he's got all this. He's just got all this BDE. Like there ain't no stopping it. Okay.
He would Yamcha body.
Okay, this is going to be the last question, and then we're going to raid Sleep Easy, who has just finished a script that I need to go edit ASAP.
Amazing.
And but this has been an amazing stream, you guys. Special everybody that Joe DNS, Salinil, G Funk Jimmy, everybody that's subbed that I'm forgetting. I love you guys, and everybody that's just here. Every stream I've done has gotten as built in following and popularity, and that's because you guys all tell people that you do this and you are loyal. And it's more than I deserve, and it means the world to me, and I really appreciate it. I really appreciate having these great guests who always do their best to bring their A game to my shows. Like, it means a lot to me. I know how valuable time is in a time like this. So a special thanks to both of you for being here. And
Pleasure.
And I would like to end with there's a bunch of good questions, and feel free to DM them to me, and I will try and answer them. And I can't speak for these guys, but I bet they'd probably make time at some point. Answer any of these questions. There was one question I was going to bring up, and it is, and we've kind of touched on it a little bit, so it won't be too hard for us to tack onto that. Is from Forget Me 000. What do you think the ultimate goal of adding the compilation material like Deep Ground and Avalanche HQ, outside of just filling out the world? How do you see these editions being used that will meaningfully impact the characters and themes in the future? Do you think... Oh, thank you for the cheer, Fits of Rage. Thank you so much. Do you think, or just filling out the word, how do you see these editions being used that will meaningfully impact the characters and themes in the future? Or do you think these are just to stream the connection between the main Final Fantasy VII and the compilation? And that's a great question. And I think you cannot remove those two things from each other, because this is a story ultimately about characters, and the characters are what tell the themes. They're what express the themes of this. So Yuffie getting more characterization through, what happens to her in Deep Ground, and Vincent getting more characterization through, what's going on with Chaos and Omega and stuff like that. These characters are now less flat. They're not opaque characters expressing the themes of these. So now when we feel things like loss, these characters will feel loss and will connect to that loss a lot more. When we understand why Barrett is so concerned for the planet, and why some of that is personal and why some of that is selfish, a lot of us can connect to having biases. I have biases. I have let personal things influence my, attitudes on political stuff before. Like the more we can connect to those characters, the more these themes will meaningfully impact us. So it's hard for me to say that developing these characters, even with quote unquote, like filler material, and I know that's not what you're saying, Forget Me 000, but with this extra compilation material, I do not think that increasing the complexity of these characters will take away from those themes. That's just my opinion. And then I'll let these two close us out with their opinion, and then we'll raid Sleep Easy.
Yeah, I agree. I would say it can't be worse. It can only be worse if it's overdone in a very cheap way, which would be, think of like the worst like actual filler you've ever seen. We've not seen any filler like for the actual term in any like Final Fantasy VII remake stuff, like because it's all been meaningful, like character driving stuff that like really fleshes out characters. Filler would be like something that's like, oh, we didn't have time, or like the manga wasn't finished in time, so we made some shit up to fill like a gap of like a couple seasons. Oh, then we can come back to the manga. Like that's what filler actually means, right? So there's no actual filler in that way. But I would love to see, like, I had this revelation again to mention the Stormlight Archive by Sanderson. It has such a massive cast of characters, and it has such a massive backstory and like development of these characters and stuff. And I think it's to the benefit of the story, like by far, if you were to read it. So, and it's very rewarding. So I think adding more characters to this world is a very good move. Executing them, of course, being the linchpin in that, executing them well. But when you look at, for example, I was thinking about it earlier when you guys were talking. When you think about like having a Nero exist in that world, having a Vice. When I look at Dirge of Cerberus in Genesis as well, when I look at Dirge of Cerberus, I viewed it as taking away from Sephiroth, taking away from these things. But when you look at it, there's really not that many characters in FF7. If you think about the entire cast, the entire world, right? So especially with these powers existing in that world, I would say after reading Sanderson, I'm a lot more on board just because his execution is like absolute perfection. That if done right, it just adds to the world building. It adds to the magic systems, the hard magic systems, the world building. The characters, they can relate more, and you can like place them more in the world as opposed to just like, oh, it's just one dude who can do that. Just one dude who can do that. I think it's great. And seeing Nero and kind of like digesting it for a couple of days now, yeah, it's fantastic. It adds so much to it. I can't wait to see what they do. And I'm just so excited for the remake in general. So as this is my last comments before I hand over to Ray, thank you so much for having me on, Baby Seal, and thank you so much to the chat. I see, so many familiar faces from my stream as well as familiar faces from this stream. Just want to thank all you guys for having me. It's always a pleasure to come on. And yeah, thank you. If you guys want to find me, just my name on all social media. Thanks. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thanks, Phil. Ray, take us out.
So I think it's kind of twofold why it's important to do this is because as a creator, as someone who writes stuff, you write a story and you look at it 5 years later and you go, man, I should have done this. I should have done that. I wish I could have done this. I wish I could have done that.
Revision, yeah.
In this situation, they're presented a very unique opportunity to do that. That's exactly what they're doing. They've got all these notes and stuff they wrote over the years. I'm sure Nojima and Nomura and all these other people, even Kitase, Like they've all had these notes and things they've scribbled over the years, like, oh, this would have worked great in this. Oh, I wish we'd thought to do this then. Oh man, there was so much stuff underneath Midgar. We didn't even talk about Sector Zero concept that we thought about. So they've got all this stuff built up, and now they have a chance to go back and flesh out their world to fully like
Yeah.
realize their world they wanted to make. That's why this is such a big deal. And the original Final Fantasy VII felt like such a big deal because there was that fleshing out of the world. There was that
Right.
care for the characters. But now they can expound upon that. They can take it from being like, a smaller like book to like the Lord of the Rings. Or think about if you're an anime fan, the original Full Metal Alchemist series was great, but it came out when there were 2 volumes of the books.
Right.
They went back to Brotherhood, and how much greater was
Oh my
Brotherhood?
god.
That's
Yeah,
what they're doing.
I use Brotherhood as an example for a good remake all the time.
Yeah, that's exactly what they're doing. And anytime you can, and a lot of you I've talked with in streams before, I see a lot of your all's names that I talk to regularly. A lot of your brains work like mine do. You put a blot on the paper and it doesn't go in a line to one spot.
Yeah.
It spider webs out. That's what they're doing now with these ideas. This
Yeah.
character begets 10 other characters that are tied to them in some way. The more you can flesh out a grand world, and especially in fantasy and fiction, you can flesh out this grand world. If you can make it breathe, if you can bring it to life, if you can give motivations to different people based on where they're from, and Final Fantasy VII does that based on where you're from, kind of what your belief system is, what your politics are, and it influences you as a person. It gives you an arc, and if every character can have an arc to go through for a story, the characters are what make a great story.
That's right.
You can have concepts for a story and how the world works, but Final Fantasy VII for me, and all the Final Fantasies have great characters here or there, or a great cast, or a great couple of characters. Final Fantasy VII, all the characters, the concepts of the characters are so well done, and they're so grounded in like real life, basically. It all starts with like, we all have a bad day. Like every character in Final Fantasy VII, they've all had their bad day,
Yeah.
and they're having the repercussions of it right now. Some had a worse day than others.
Sure.
So now they're going back and they're taking the different levels of, basically these people have all leveled up as storytellers. So now we're getting the benefit of that. All the hard work and stuff they're putting in, and them cutting their teeth and busting their chops over the years to become better artists, to become better storytellers, to become just better people at creating worlds for us. They want to go back to their baby. All of them, if you talk to them, this is the one story that they're like, the new people that are on the game design teams are like, this is what made me want to make video games. And then the people that come back to it, they're like, this is the story I always wanted to come back to.
Right.
So they get that chance. And as a storyteller, there's nothing greater because a lot of people don't get that chance. I'm a big Kentaro Miura fan.
Yeah.
He passed away before he could finish his story.
Yeah.
He's a big influence. You can
That's
look on my wall. He's a huge influence on me for the last 17 years.
Same,
He never
man.
got to finish his story.
Yeah.
Now,
Massive
these
block.
people, not only do they get to go back and finish their story, they get to use all the notes and all the ideas they had after they finished the first draft. Final Fantasy VII is the first draft. Now they get to go back and finish it. So I think it's all important that they do the work they feel like they need to do. I'm here for it. I'm a fan of it.
Cool.
And the biggest reasons that I became a storyteller was this game, and see them get to do that. And before I go, I want to say real quick, Baby Seal, brother Clark, you said earlier you're like so grateful for all this stuff, man. You're bringing the community together in what is coming out of a very dark time. I'm going to be real. I'm going to keep it a buck with you all. We had a time where people were pointing fingers and going in on each other. And this guy right here, I hope you're northeast. No, you're west. You're that way. Okay. This guy right here, he took the high road. And he reached out to all the creators, no matter what your opinion was. He said, I want you on my show. Let's talk about it. He went the right way. Talk about it. He brought the community together. And I want to tell you, you're deserving of everything you get. You should have 300 people a stream. You should have all this stuff going on. You should be you should be the biggest Final Fantasy dude around. And I'm here for it, brother. I'm here for it. I'm here to watch you grow. So I mean, the stream I was on before to see where it's at now is just totally impressive, man. I mean, I mean, give him a digital round of applause because he's killing it. He's killing it. I wouldn't be known by a lot of you all. I wouldn't have met Philip. I wouldn't have met Sleep Easy. I wouldn't have met a lot of other people. He's bringing the community together in a lot of ways. There was a lot of people that were trying to drive the community apart. It's Final Fantasy, baby. It's all love.
It's all love.
It's all love. It's here for our entertainment. It's here to make your day better. These game developers, they don't want to talk about all that bad stuff because they're like, I made this thing to make your day better. Final Fantasy VII has been there in my worst days, and Clark, I've told you about this.
Mm-hmm.
Been there in my worst days.
Same.
Growing up, I'm 40. I'll be 42 on Halloween, God willing. I got a family and stuff. Before I had all that, for the past 21 years, it's been there for me on my worst days, and this guy is keeping that pure, man. And I salute you and I respect you for it. You deserve all the credit you get. And I can't wait to see this community keep growing, man. So salute, brother.
Thank you so much.
Agree 100%.
Okay. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. I love all you guys so much. Because I can't talk and because I'm overflowing with love, I'm gonna start a raid command to my dear friend Sleep Easy. All this love you've shown me, please keep moving it forward, and let's get through all this together. Thank you all. I'm starting the raid command now. All right, it's raid time.
All right.
I know a lot of you are already in both streams because you are loving and loyal like that, but it's time. Raid time. Thank you guys all. Have a wonderful, wonderful day.
Love you guys. Thank you for having me.